If I could check my. Anyway. I know, Caitlin will be here in a second. I think that's her computer. This time. Oh, okay. You good over there? You need another moment? That won't help. Oh, what's the date? Okay, all of us that are here are here. It's 5:04. Welcome to the City of Steamboat Springs Historic Preservation Commission meeting. This is our public meeting. It's November 10th, 2025. We will start with roll call, and of note, Commissioner Julie Alcama is absent today. Molly, will you say hello?
Hello, Molly Rusher, Commissioner.
Hello. Katie Adams, Commissioner.
Ally Kavanaugh, Commissioner.
Marianne Capra, Commissioner.
Caitlin Barabee Smith, staff.
Thank you. And since we have a few new folks joining us today, I'm just going to quickly state the Historic Preservation's purpose and role. Through the Historic Preservation Program, the City of Steamboat Springs seeks to preserve the community's natural and built historic resources to help maintain distinct community character and contribute to the cultural awareness, sustainability, and economic growth of the community. We are comprised of volunteer council-appointed members who work to safeguard the area's historical and cultural heritage by identifying, protecting, and promoting its resources. The HPC manages designations, reviews proposed exterior alterations and modifications to eligible resources, and works to educate the public about the importance of preservation. So, first up is any public comment tonight for stuff not on the agenda. Yeah, something's happening. All right, cool. Seeing none, we'll move to our first project. Our first item for discussion, but we won't be taking a motion because it's a concept review. So this is the Western Resiliency Center concept review for 602 Oak. Caitlin, do you want to introduce the project, or would you like to have applicant presentation first? All right.
We'll have applicant presentation first.
Thanks. This is the applicant here for 602 Oak. And who might be speaking? It's Chancey. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Chancey Keenan. I'm with Mountain Architecture Design Group tonight. We're excited to be working with the Western Resilience Center on their project. We've been practicing in the Yampa Valley for decades at this point and worked on a lot of historic preservation projects over the years. And this one feels really special. It's just right down the street and very visible, and they're such a great organization. So I'll start with a little bit of a background about like how we got to this location and this design that we'll be reviewing together, and our approach to the design. And then I'm really excited to hear your feedback as well. So the Resiliency Center's mission is to serve as a leader, a catalyst, and resource for building sustainable and a resilient Yampa Valley. And they've been growing over the years and have outgrown the space that they were previously in. So what they were looking for was a resource center located downtown for walkability, et cetera. That could be an educational facility, and I'll let Michelle kind of talk to their mission in more depth. But it was really exciting for them to find this location at 602 Oak Street. And they have moved in. That's their new home. Their offices are there. They're operating out of the space, and getting to know Michelle and her organization and board. It seems like everybody was really, really, really thrilled to find this space. And when the moment they walked in, they loved the energy and have been doing a lot of research and learning about the stories of this home throughout the years, and are excited to add their chapter to the story of this house. So they approached Mountain Architecture last winter to engage in some pre-design kind of zoning analysis, et cetera, to see what we could do with this property, ideally maintaining that existing historic structure and putting an addition toward the back of the property. that is currently a parking lot. So we've collaborated over the months to develop a site plan with the priorities of having a very sustainable project. So through programming and design, in order to meet their growing programmatic needs, we have designed an addition to the rear, and the existing structure is small in scale by nature of being a historic home in Old Town. So the addition inevitably does grow the property and the scale of the property, but we've tried to be very sensitive in how we're going to do that. Part of what we're looking for is maximizing this site because they love the location downtown and the walkability, all the things I've just discussed. So in looking at what is the potential of this property, we are very dedicated to registering this structure on the local register, the city local register. But in doing so, there are some limitations with the design of that. One thing that we did look at, if we were to start from scratch without this historic building being salvaged, we could effectively gain about 1,500 square feet in the basement underneath that main living level. So through that analysis, we are looking to meet all of their programmatic needs on this site and preserve the historic structure. So when we go in for a development plan, we will be asking for a floor area ratio variance, and that is kind of directly related to preserving this historic structure and some of the inefficiencies of the space and the roof lines and low headroom upstairs and things like that. So we're hoping to have your support in that regard. So all projects of this nature that Mountain Architecture works on, our first step is to look at the Secretary of the Interior standards for additions to historic buildings. And I really enjoyed actually familiarizing myself with the recently locally adopted city standards, which mirror a lot of those, the Secretary of the Interiors, but have specific criteria for our climate. So that was kind of fun for me. But basically we have this 1907 structure that we really want to treat with care and respect. And there have been several additions done to the project over the years, or done to that existing 1907 structure over the years. So we're looking at preserving the significant character defining features of that existing home. That primary facade being Oak Street facade, which is really the only vantage point that we have photo documentation of. And then also looking at some of the additions that have been done over the years. There are a few non-contributing elements, the additions from 1980 that we would like to remove and reconstruct to make their program work, as well as just kind of clean up the building altogether. So I'm excited about the addition that we're proposing. It has nearly zero impact to the front facade. There is an area of some rusty metal wainscot that wraps about a foot of the front. We're proposing to remove that and do a less bold contrasting color of metal wainscot. You really don't experience the addition at all from the front facade. And as we move around the 6th Street side to the secondary facade, we have a pretty significant link or hyphen between the two buildings, the existing and the new. And we've worked really hard to create a lot of transparency in that entry element. It is set back from that original 1907 primary facade by about 6 feet. However, it is kind of in line with one of a porch that was enclosed in 1980. So Caitlin and I have talked in depth about that. The link is also 21 feet wide, which I think is pretty significant. It works for our program and also architecturally and meets the Secretary of the Interior standards. Colors, we are proposing dark colors for the primary mass in order to visually reduce that mass and also play off the tones of the navy blue siding of the historic structure. We did implement a gable form kind of set back closer to the alley that has a different contrasting material, but also plays off that gable form of the historic structure, but just a more contemporary architectural version of that. So 2025 versus 1907. On that secondary facade. We do have a long sloping shed roof for that main mass, which we intend to put solar panels on so that we don't have to disrupt that existing roof or the front primary facade with any kind of solar aspect, as that is a goal of the organization. I can continue to talk about some of the standards that we looked at in depth if you would like, or I feel like you're all pretty familiar with those. So if with that, I can, you're all set? Okay. We do have an updated file that has a couple of edits from the file that we sent Caitlin last Monday, if we want to look at that. Some of the significant changes there are maintaining the navy blue siding on the cross gable addition from that secondary facade. I think that was kind of our primary edit from that original file.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Did you want to pull up your presentation? It
Sure.
not.
I just have the plan set, but I can page through and kind of point out some of the areas where we feel like we're meeting the design
Sure.
standards.
Yeah, let's do that. Thanks. Oh, yeah.
All right, so on this front page, I did include excerpts from the architectural inventory form that note the additions and the original construction period, which I thought was just kind of a helpful resource and reminder for all of us as we're moving through this. And then you can see this tiny little photo. I have some larger photos further into the set, but that existing primary facade is really we've maintained it entirely, and you almost don't experience the addition from this front facade. This is a survey, and we've done a small overlay. I'm gonna give me one second. So this is the original building survey, and this area that's outlined in green is the portion of the building that we are not altering. And then this area that is pink is the porch and stair addition that are listed as the 1980s additions that we're proposing to remove. We are maintaining the line of that front porch with our revised plan and entry link. Let's see. Oh. So here's the building footprint on the site plan, and you can see this lighter shaded area is that original building structure with the cross gable that was added slightly after 1907. And then this area here is our 21-foot wide link that is set back a little over 6 feet from the secondary building facade along 6th Street. And then I have several slides here that show the existing floor plans and our demolition floor plans for reference. I don't know that we need to get really deep in that, but we can refer to them if you would like. So maybe I'll just skip forward to our proposed plan. I should have these pages memorized. Oh, right past it. All right, so this is our proposed main level floor plan, and it's so kind of tiny up there, and it looks like the shading isn't showing up very well. But we're maintaining this entire front existing structure. We're maintaining the cross gable footprint, and we're also maintaining the footprint of that enclosed porch. And again, this is what I'm considering the secondary facade of the historic structure that faces 6th Street. So we have this significant recess back and then 21 feet of width there. So I know that is an important feature to create that hyphen between the two buildings. And then again, on the second level, that second level is set back to the addition that wasn't 1907, but it was done prior to 1980. So we are maintaining that facade as well, and have this roof deck feature here that also creates some transparency and some depth from the street facade, which I think benefits the visual impact of the structure. Roof plans. So here's our front facade, and as you can see, set far back from Oak Street, so it's a little deceiving, I think, in 2 dimensions. You do start to see that roof beyond, but I think it's really, it's pretty minimal. And this is the corner here where we're replacing the contrasting rusty metal siding with some blue siding. So here's our cute existing structure, and it'll look just like that after this project. And then as we move around to this facade, a little jumpy here. This is what I'm considering the secondary facade facing 6th Street. And here is this gable form, again, that we are trying to play off of in that contemporary yet sympathetic manner. We've also incorporated landscape style windows to kind of play off the front facade windows that are landscape scale, and creating this link and transparency here between the historic structure and the proposed structure. I'm happy to talk about this in depth if you'd like. And maybe before we get there, I'll just flip through to some of our 3D images. Okay, so these images actually you can see the addition back behind the historic structure. And I think this does a good job of demonstrating how subordinate it is from that primary Oak Street facade. So we have this. Also, this facade, again, you hardly even experience the addition. And then as we move around onto 6th Street, we have these links that are set back and these transparent elements with the rooftop deck and the recessed entry before we get into this primary mass over here. Oop. Come on. Right here, nobody will ever see this view, but I think it does a good job of demonstrating again, the recesses and the link between the structures. This is the area of the existing front porch that was enclosed in 1980. And it's in disrepair, and it's fairly damaged and a difficult space to use from the interior. So we would like to reconstruct that and add significant transparency again, to create that link and kind of showcase the cross gable original form. All right. We've got some more 3D images here if we need to reference those, and some images of the alley facade and the facade that faces the neighbor, which aren't very visible from public ways. So we can talk about those, but I don't have any focused discussion on those facades. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions or discussions or whatever next steps you have.
Cool, thanks. Any quick questions from commissioners before we do? You want to go first? Okay, let's hear the staff's report.
Can we ask questions after staff?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Okay. Here comes Mike.
Mike, my mic is broken. Thank you. Yeah, so just as a reminder, typically we have the applicant present first, and then staff can make a presentation, and then Katie will continue with questions from commissioners and staff for the applicant, and then HPC discussion. And with this, there is no decision, just the providing of objective feedback. If you give me one moment, I'm going to share my screen here.
Thanks.
If I can figure it out.
Timers. We've really upgraded.
Chancey, can you stop sharing your screen? You have, okay.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Oh, sure is. Good iPad.
All right, I'd like to take a few moments to first review the architectural significance and then the historical and social significance of this property. And then I would like to take a few moments to correct some incorrect information presented by the applicant as it is pertinent to HBC's concept review. So first and foremost, this structure was built in 1907. It is historically significant as it represents the transition from residential Oak Street to commercial Oak Street. It was a residence up until 1969, until Florence M. Brown took over ownership and turned it into the Brown Book Corner. From there, it was utilized as a commercial property.
We think.
So
Asterisks, we think.
we think.
Still learning.
We're still learning, according to Jim Crawford's account in Brick by Brick. Also, according to Jim Crawford's account in Brick by Brick, there is a Sentinel article from May of 1919 that does record the cross gable addition, which you see right here, and the shed pitch roof addition as being built in 1919. So I want to be very clear that the shed pitch roof addition and the cross gable addition were built in 1919. The portion that was added on in 1980, there were a few changes that happened. Number one, the front porch. This is the front porch, not this area, was enclosed in 1980. The brick chimney was reconstructed in 1980, and they extended a portion off of the rear of the home, extending the cross gable addition, which provided for an enclosed staircase and for a carport. That occurred in 1980. And so if we were looking at this plan set right here, this portion is really truly the only portion that was constructed, that we have a record of being constructed in 1980, along with the reconstruction of the chimney and enclosure of the front porch. So again, right here, you can see this location is where the shed pitch roof addition was placed near the cross gable addition. And then we have the 1980 addition. And all we really have confirmation from in 1919 is that an addition was built. But if you look at the height of the roof and the style of a shed pitch roof, that is synonymous with architectural styles and changes of the early to mid 1900s. I want to speak a little bit about the double frontage that this lot has. 602 Oak Street is on the corner of 6th and Oak Street. That's considered a double frontage. And so from a historical preservation standpoint, it's not just important to maintain and make compatible an addition with the massing and scale of what would be considered the front pedestrian right-of-way, which we would typically say is along Oak Street, but also as you turn the corner down 6th Street. That is also a front-facing pedestrian right-of-way. And so while the massing and scale is quite compatible from the front of Oak Street, as you can see right here to the right, it is not when you look at it from its double frontage along 6th Street. What was initially discussed, which is in your packet with the applicant, was increasing the connector, which initially was the 6th Street entry right here, increasing it in width, pushing it back significantly, reducing the square footage of the open patio, and decreasing the massing between where the historic roof of the cross gable addition and the new roof of the new structure meets, so it could maintain compatibility and scale. Typically, when you have a connector, you want your connector to be 1 story. That does not mean that it cannot be 2 stories, but typically your connector is lower in building height if you're looking at a rear or side addition, than the historic structure. In the revised plan set that the applicant presented for staff and what is in your application today, they've removed the, we'll say, post-1919, 1919, but absolutely pre-1980 shed pitch roof addition, which would have been right here. And as Chancey stated, that's being considered the connector. A connector does not replace a historic portion of a building. That does not meet our historic standards and guidelines. And so, as a recap, from a staff perspective on how this project could better objectively meet historic standards and guidelines, this shed addition would remain. They can gain interior height by modifying the interior of the space. The connector would decrease in massing and building height and would be reduced in terms of distance from the edge of the historic structure. And though that is kind of the staff feedback to the applicant that you have presented for you in your building packet. An additional consideration is this structural support system right here, the beam that holds the roof in place. That was kind of initially discussed with the applicant. While beautiful in design, it does compete with the historic architecture. I think there are other ways to support the roof and the porch, particularly if that porch is pushed back with the entryway and a true connector is utilized. And the other feedback presented was the removal of the very large coniferous tree along 6th Street. While we do not have regulatory authority to govern over individual trees, landscaping is part of the importance of a site. And so it was recommended that the applicant look into alternative ways to root bind, root shave, and preserve that tree throughout construction, which can be done from an arbor perspective. And other than that, I do think the design is beautiful and I think it serves a purpose and serves the need for their future programming. And that is my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now commissioners can ask questions for staff or the applicant. When you're ready. I will say, while they're getting ready, I dig the blue, but it's not historic at all. In fact, I remember when they painted it, so you guys probably remember or know more, but it's less than 3 years. So is the corrugated metal, and I support removing that. But I just wanted to be like, no, it's actually new, which sometimes is a benefit because you might not have to redo it. But I'm just saying it didn't start out blue. I don't believe we had those bold of colors in 1907. And my other question was about the chimney, if it was original, but you clarified that it's been reconstructed.
About what? I'm sorry.
The chimney was reconstructed. And then my question for the applicant is, are you thinking of seeking Steamboat Springs Historic designation prior or after the addition?
Our intent is to move forward with registration. So we're hoping that that can be a condition of approval. Just timing wise, we would like to get the development plan in motion before we're able to go through the entire process of registering. But we are moving forward with that intent.
Okay.
And when she speaks of a condition of approval, that would be a condition of approval of the development plan when they submit it. And so a very similar way to think about that is the condition of approval for the Marshall House development plan, which means if it is a condition of approval, they must follow the Secretary of Interior standards and local historic design guidelines. Their project will not be approved without HPC official approval if it does not.
Regardless of designation?
Yes, because designation would be a condition of approval for their development plan to move forward.
Gotcha.
Chancy, can I ask a couple questions? So it sounds like you guys, if you would have demoed it, you could have gotten 1,500 square feet more out of the project, which would have, for program of what this client is looking for, would have been ideal. And so you guys are looking for a variance with the FAR. What percentage over are you from the floor area requirement?
It's a little bit of a moving target because we've been messing around with that entry. How far do we push it back, et
Yeah.
cetera. But we are currently somewhere around 20% of an increase is what we're looking for.
Okay. And then I can't tell, it's written on the drawings, but I can't tell. So this section that Caitlin's talking about, how far from the face of your secondary facade, that's the blue color with the two windows, how far back second level is the face of framing, basically, of that upper level?
The second level,
Yeah, the hyphen.
the main level porch is a little over 6 feet, and I would venture to guess that on the that porch is about 10 feet deep. So 16 or so, I might be able to.
Okay, so that second level is pushed back 16 feet off the face. And then the lower level is pushed back 6 off the face.
Approximately.
Okay.
The lower level is like 6'2", and then I'm making an educated guess on the second one, but let me see if I can get that.
Okay. And then regarding the height of just that massing that Caitlin's talking about,
Mhm.
the solar panels, did you guys think about, I can see on the roof plan that there's certain solar panels that go the entire length. Was there any thought of pushing those back to the north side a little bit? Or do you guys really like, because it fits with the sustainability, it's a downtown, it's very prominent, is having those solar panels, even though they kind of make the massing larger, is that part of the design? Or is it something that you thought about maybe if you had shifted those north, they could be less visually?
Yeah, we actually met with our solar consultant, and what we want to do is maximize the solar opportunities on this roof, just to offset our carbon footprint and have that be kind of a public education example as well, given the mission of the organization. So we are trying to capitalize on as much solar gain as we can.
So is the reason that the smaller solar panels are pulled to the front of the secondary, is that because you think that there may be additional solar panels and those will grow the other direction? Or is there a reason that they're,
Right, and there's shading, we're looking at shading during our winter months and whatnot. We also have an elevator in the corner that we'll have to accommodate
Okay.
mechanical equipment for. So this was the layout that we.
and from the front elevation, as we all know, looking at a building elevation, no human being ever looks at a building like that. So when you're down, your 3D renderings, I don't use that yet, but when you're standing down on the street and you look up in those front elevations that you're presenting, you actually don't see anything. You can't see behind. Is that correct?
That's correct, because it's set further back than that cross gable even.
Right.
So
Okay.
you really don't experience it. And I think that some of those 3D perspectives on the last 3 sheets of your plan set really showcase that.
Yeah, they do. And how high above the existing roof is the peak of your, not including the solar panels, how much higher is that secondary?
So we are, it's on a different plan set, shoot.
It looks like about 6 feet.
We are, yeah,
And then you drop down with
I
your,
would have to get back to you on that. I don't.
that's all right. Okay.
With
Yeah, I
that,
guess those are all just the concepts of like the massing, you know? So I like that it's, you know, we're obviously trying to pull the two buildings apart and have them look different, but on such a prominent corner, that massing is, I mean, you talked about it and Caitlin talked about it, but,
we also have these existing floor elevations that we're working with. So, so having, ADA accessibility and then also working within our overall height restrictions and average plate height restrictions. We wanted to keep that gable form, the new gable form in scale with the, transitioning to the residential neighborhood and complementing the existing structure. And then because it is a large scale addition to a very small existing historic structure, to reduce that mass, again, like the darker colors and then the shed roof, I think kind of kept that peak lower.
I think that that secondary gable being the same pitch as the other one, I think is really aesthetically really is helpful. When you talked about the criteria for our climate and how that kind of you wrapped that into the design through the Secretary of Standards, that there's no soffit on your new gable. Is that, is that, am I reading that correct? The secondary, the gable on 6th Street that,
It's not very deep. No, it's only maybe 6 inches deep. But climatically, getting the shed roof to shed to the back property line where we will have drip and ice and snow shed, et cetera. Yeah, the side, I guess.
yep.
The interior
gotcha.
side, so that we aren't causing hazards for pedestrians along the front around like 6th Street.
Okay, thanks, Chancey. Yeah, Caitlin.
I just want to reiterate and be clear that the gable off of 6th Street is not of concern. It is where the historic structure meets the new structure and how the roof is recessed and the height of the building and the significant massing and scale where you would typically have less between the new structure and the old structure.
Yeah, I guess so. Those were my questions, but maybe to pick up on what you're saying. And my first question to Chancey was, I feel like that pushback is really helpful in creating that, that secondary structure. And I hear what you're saying, that we do want to bring that, like ideally that roof does not exceed or meet. It's a smaller connecting bridge between the two.
I guess I want to be clear that this right here is not a connector. It is a removed portion of the historic structure.
Right,
Does not serve as a connector.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I understand. I guess
And
I
so-
just feel like that, I feel like the depth, for me personally, I just think it helps to pull the buildings, the new building and the existing structure. I know it's not like, I feel like there's like, we're always kind of, there's the intent and then there's the word. And I feel like sometimes you meet the word of the code and you don't actually meet the intent of the code. And sometimes you don't meet the word of the code, but you meet the intent of the code. And so I totally understand what you're saying about this does not meet the word of the code. But the fact that it is the massing, I understand the massing is an issue, but I think the way they are together, not using the word connector, I feel like it does what the intent is.
And I don't want to participate in your discussion, but I do want to offer clarification where needed. And what is typically not allowed in our local standards and our the Secretary of the Interior standards is removal of a significant portion of a historic structure. And that's what they've done. And so I don't think that we can, from my interpretation, my staff report is based on the fact that that is what we are viewing. We're not viewing a connector. We're viewing new construction that is replacing a historic addition. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. This is replacing a historic addition.
I feel like you're getting ready to say something.
I'm
Are
not.
you, Mary Ann?
No.
Deep in thought.
Mary Ann's working on it. I can tell you have something you want to say.
Do you want a minute? Do you want more minutes and I'll talk for a second?
Let's go.
Okay. Give you some more time to consolidate those thoughts. Yeah, just to, as from a recommendation standpoint or feedback perspective, which is all we're giving here, is I agree very strongly with Caitlin's list of design guideline bullet points. And I feel like to Caitlin's point, the plans are a little, oh, I don't want to say deceiving, but they led me a different direction in my thought process by having that red line in every single image for where 1980 additions happened versus original structure, because they are drawn straight through a 1919, the cross gable portion of the home, which just is, it's just a little, it led me down a different path until I had to go back and reread everything and figure out what we were actually talking about. So maybe in the final designs, we don't put the red line through the entire house, like we're sawing off the back of the house, so that it's more clear what section is historic and remaining versus what section isn't, which isn't a straight line at all. It's a little jagged notch. So that's one piece of feedback. And, I know why you did it. It was to make your point clear, but it just felt a little misleading. As far as the materials and the styling, I'm leaning, if you go to the new guidelines, pages 55 and 57 have images of incongruent additions to historic buildings, and I feel like this aligns with both of those images. And so it's bothering me from that perspective. And also the materials and that, well, there's a line in there that literally says that the addition should be a subtle change. It should be distinguishable, but a subtle change, and this is far from subtle, in my opinion. As far as the tree goes, I hate to cut down a tree, and I'm sure that's also not in your mission statement, is to chop down giant trees. That's obviously against what you're for. So I know that you wouldn't do it unless you absolutely had to. I'm looking at, there's two images of this secondary facade on 6th Street. One of them actually has a pine tree in the picture, but it's much smaller, I'm guessing. And I saw in the plan that tree is 27 feet around or diameter. And I'm not sure if you could even fit the ADA ramp if you left that tree. So I'm just curious if there's another way to, I don't know, Caitlin, am I seeing that right? Isn't the tree right where basically the
There are
lighter
two
shaded?
big trees over there, maybe 27 feet high.
So there are two,
Okay.
I'm not sure of their species, so I'm going to say coniferous. There are two coniferous trees at the corner of 6th and Oak Street. And then, yes, there would be one where Molly is referencing. And as for the ADA placement of a ramp, I mean, that's up for the designers and the architect. I think that there's a lot of ways you can work around a tree.
Okay.
But again, it's, to your point, it is the Sustainability Council. I'm sure they don't want to remove a tree if they don't have to.
I guess and the only other thing that I had is the massing of this building. I drove over there today, and I mean, for the neighborhood, and for the street from 6th to 7th, it occupies a much larger footprint on the lot than the other properties to the east. I guess, do. However, the property right behind it is the big apartment building that takes up most of the lot. And then to the west, or to the, I said that backwards, to the west, it's less dense than it is to the east. So I feel like we're kind of at a toss-up for whether or not it is appropriate for the neighborhood. But this is ginormous and I don't feel like it respects the original structure. And also in the design with the additions that the cross gable additions and the part that we're talking about as being a connector, those being different materials from the original home, I guess they are trying to accomplish what Sally was saying, and they're trying to imply a division of space, but they also don't tell the story of the original structure that way either, because now you aren't sure that those were original and part of the original structure. So I just feel a little misled, I guess, again, by the coloring of that and what it's trying to imply. So I think that's about it.
Okay, let's see. Well, I think just since we're talking conceptually, I agree that the sizing and massing compared to the historic structure is over and beyond. So the historic structure is going to look relatively minuscule compared to the addition. In general, that's how things are going in our community. And I liken this, it's really similar to another project that happened in the last decade over at the historic Willett House in the United Way on 5th and Oak. And so we dealt with similar concerns that the historic structure might be lost to the addition. And now, I don't know, 6 years later, 10, a handful of years later, the United Way addition fits in with the feeling and use of Oak Street. And I feel that this ultimately will as well. Up front, it's going to feel huge. Yes, there's an apartment building over there. So I would just want you guys to continue to be mindful that how the addition and the style of the addition and the scale of the addition will look on 6th Street. But overall, I'm not terribly concerned because you're next to the gigantic Catholic Church. So that's that. I understand what Caitlin is saying, and I personally wouldn't want to communicate a desire to remove any historic additions. However, I feel like the majority of the home and the historic features have been preserved in this, and I appreciate that an attempt at a connector was even done, because often we don't even get that. So I think the connector is working to differentiate the historic from the addition. Ideally, I would like the sort of what we're calling the 1919 cross gable to remain, and then a connector, and then the office spaces in new addition, which would significantly reduce your square footage. This is our, I'm again looking at Oak Street. We've got meeting rooms at United Way. We've got meeting rooms that are beautiful at the Community Foundation. And now we've got meeting rooms here. Oh, and we have a new county building full of meeting rooms. I know we like to be in our own space, but I just kind of am wondering, is all the square footage really needed? And do we all need to be running our lights? Can we have meeting spaces jointly? And I know that was some of the benefits that we heard when these projects were being proposed, is that they would all be open to the community. And yet everyone keeps stating that they need their own meeting rooms. So perhaps, not my business, scaling back the size could be something to consider. And then as I wrap up, I just want to point out, and I talked to Chancey about it already, out front is a historic hitching post, and I see that as part of a site feature that's literally only on that site. There used to be one out in front of the museum and it was stolen. So now this is the only one that remains in our community. And it's the only thing that reminds us that people rode horses and hitched them out front. So please do everything you can to retain that, interpret it, and love it. Yes.
I know Marianne is likely going to chime in and say something, but as you wrap up your discussion, if you each maybe want to say a few bullet points in terms of this meets the Secretary of Interior standards and local guidelines, or if you change this, it will better meet the Secretary of Interior standards and local historic design guidelines. So they have some concrete and definitive feedback to take back to the drawing board.
Okay. Yes. And then the last thing I will say is more just as a point of further clarity for the staff report. Trotter Pioneers Museum was contacted about this by Chancey, the architect, as what I call a typical research request. So I didn't have information about this project prior. I've just meeting a requirement as a public service entity that I work for. That information that I gave to Chancey was then also shared with staff. Just that's in the meeting minutes.
Yeah, and I do think that that was a little bit of a concern from staff standpoint because that is the information that stated that those additions were built in 1919. So the applicant did have that information.
Yeah. And we will continue to look for additional images as I can. Marianne, are you ready?
I regret being last and the fact that actually you addressed, Katie Adams addressed a lot of what I was going to say. I do find it really consistent with where the Willett House is today. And I was on the commission during those additions. I think, given that so much has already been said, the only thing that I'm sort of left wondering about and is just the role of, were this property to go from being eligible to actually being listed on the local historic register? Where does that fall into the sequence and what does that make available to the owners, applicant? Because I think that would have bearing.
Yeah, totally. If they want to seek tax credits, they would need to list it first, right, Caitlin?
Yes, if you'd like to seek tax credits, it would need to be listed on the register first. If you're going in for a state grant, it would be a condition of the grant, and designation can occur after you receive grant funding and complete your project. However, in discussion with our planning director, as this project is brought forward today, it would not be eligible for the local register due to the,
Loss of the 1919.
yes,
Okay, which I had.
and particularly the double frontage.
So I'm just going to say to the commission, you know, I highlighted that section of page 5, number 6. I now regret that I didn't actually go and look at Jim Crawford's booklet. Oh, I was trying to pull it up, but because I feel like,
Just a little
yeah, it's just a booklet.
owner rundown, how it changed hands and title is kind of.
It's a one-page overview of ownership, which does include some overview of exterior changes over time.
Yeah. And Marianne, it was owned by Lucy Bogue.
Yeah, you know, I think the historical significance was more impressive than I anticipated, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm just using my spidey sense here, which is why I wish I could view that booklet myself, because I feel like I'm getting conflicting information from Caitlin and Katie, perhaps about. I'm not really convinced about I'd like to see what Jim Crawford had to say about what got put in there in 1919. And so that's the thing, and so that's lack of clarity leaves me very amenable to the presentation we received tonight. And
And let me clarify, it's not Jim Crawford who just thought that it was, the addition was built in 1919. There is an article in the Sentinel from 1919 that states that the owners built an addition in 1919. So I just want to be clear, it is of historic record. And
think I have
ultimately, you all are
clarity.
the decision makers. So
okay, and
you don't have to agree with me.
sorry to talk over you. I think I understand with clarity that an addition occurred in 1919. I think there's a lack of, from the historic record, of precisely what that was. And that's what I am discussing right now. And that lack of clarity leaves it open to our discretion as far as I'm concerned. And
However, we still need to take into account the standards and guidelines and massing and scale and use of a connector and building height.
I think some of the other commissioners have spoken to that topic, and I think that lack of historical clarity around specificity about the addition and possibly something like photography or things like that, we can agree to disagree that I find a gray zone right there.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that point?
Hmm.
So if the lower addition is decided that it is not historic because we can't prove it, or we have, there's some gray area there, if that's the case,
Mhm.
from the Secretary of Interior standards, I guess I'm unclear as to where a connection can be placed. Can it be placed as a first story on a second story wall, and that's the connector, or does it have to divide completely structure to structure?
That's a great question. So if we want to use proper terminology here, we would look at the original addition. So let's pretend like this is the original addition right here. And we would determine that it is non-contributing to the overall historic and architectural significance of the structure. And if you have a non-contributing addition, you can remove that addition, and you would ideally remove that addition so you could better showcase the contributing addition behind it. Therefore, you would not build an addition to cover up the contributing addition that was built in 1919, which is another reason why this does not meet the Secretary of Interior standards.
Does Caitlin, and does the resources that you're citing, that you're familiar with, what was printed in the Routt County Sentinel, is that correct?
I would have to go back and look.
Okay, that's fine. And okay, we've got a copy.
If you're going to speak, you have to pull up to the podium and speak into the mic.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, since it's been brought up a few times.
Yeah, you can come to, but
Wait, but
for-
before you
finish
speak,
up.
I'd like to ask if that answered Molly's question rather than cutting off her question.
Oh, about the connector.
So yes, to restate it, if we decide that one single story addition with the 3 windows in this image right here is not a contributing element to the historic home, the 2-story addition behind it is a contributing element of the home, and therefore building a single-story connector in front of the contributing portion of the home is not
It's not compatible.
compatible with the Secretary of the Interior design guidelines.
Design standards or a
Design
local
standards.
design guidelines, correct. You would be looking at a rehabilitation and a reimagining to showcase that historic cross gable addition.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, we're ready for the 1919. Please.
Just to add to your conversation, so the area that we would like to reconstruct is listed in the architectural inventory form as an enclosed porch at the northeast corner that was constructed in 1980, enclosing 80 square feet. So there is a potential that that was a porch at some point. There is no foundation really underneath that, where there is a basement, a mechanical, kind of coal room style basement. It's not occupiable under the rest of the structure. So just worth noting. So in that light, if we do increase the transparency of that element, are we kind of nodding in a modern contemporary way toward that being a more open porch? Just an idea for discussion. And then did you want to read the excerpt that there?
Well, good evening, commissioners. Good evening, staff. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I do have the clipping from the Sentinel. It is dated May 2nd, 1919. Mrs. F.L. Marquette, who now owns the former Harris residence at the corner of 6th and Oak Streets, is having the house remodeled and improved. The rear wing is being carried up to two full 2 stories in height. And then Mrs. C. Cole, mother of Everett. So it continues on to the next thing. So it does say, having the house remodeled and improved, the rear wing is being carried up to full 2 stories. So that is the quote and the description of it. If I can I just say a few additional items, or I'm happy to.
Sure, go ahead, since you're here.
Well, thank you so much for reviewing.
Before you
Yeah.
continue, can you, just for our minutes, just state your name and?
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. Michelle Stewart, Executive Director of Western Resilience Center, formerly Yampa Valley Sustainability Council. I'm happy to be here this evening. Thank you for the discussion. The opportunity that we see with this building is with intention to model historic preservation. We too really cherish this unique history in this town. So we have the intention to do the right thing. And I'm hearing discussions and concerns around the massing, and that has been a deliberative discussion with us, and that is informed by what we see as programming needs. Katie, thank you so much for calling attention to the fact that having duplicative meeting spaces in the same area is not beneficial. We already use a lot of those meeting spaces, and they're wonderful, and it's an opportunity to connect with the community. The design for that particular place is to create an educational foyer and kind of gallery that people can come to and learn at. So it is a place to gather. And when looking at the recommendations to move back that area, we would actually be sacrificing one of the core goals and visions of that building, which is a place for people to come and learn, share resources, have installations that are educational and inspiring. So it's not just dormant, unused meeting space. I just really want to clarify that it actually is part of the programming and the design and the vision for that building. And really our goal is also with the attachment to model what it is to lead by example as we look to 2026 as being ideally our construction year. So we have an opportunity to bridge 120 years of essentially building science, pulling together that unique history, and then putting it in dialogue with a building that is modeling net zero geothermal, solar. We're right next to the building department where people can come over and learn and see the systems when they're doing new projects. And so the intent is really to couple both honoring where we are and where we come from, and then also be a resource and really enhance and deliver upon our mission as people come to the building. So we really, one of our key kind of ethos with the design is not to have dormant, unused spaces. So we have an internship program. We train 12 interns a year. We are a community space. The design is really to be a vibrant hub. Our staff at present are 15. So we really are aiming to utilize it in order to better serve the city as well. So just wanted to add those in and then read that verbatim text. So thank you very much for your consideration of this. Our intent really is to align with this. Ultimately, we would love to move forward with historic preservation if we have that opportunity, while also reaching what we need is the functions of that building. And then I actually do have people who come to the building in wheelchairs, and at present they cannot access us. From an ADA accessibility standpoint, even that porch area has a very low roof and uneven stepping stones. So doing it just internally is actually quite hard from an accessibility in this current time. So thank you very much.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
You hit on something really intriguing to me. I'm coming from the Portland, Seattle area where I practiced architecture, and the AIA was really involved in tours.
Mhm.
And so a lot of us would get together, the general contractors and the local architects and intern architects, and we would tour buildings with, on Friday.
Yeah.
Just as a thing to do socially, but really an incredible place for the building professionals
Yes.
to learn and to not just hear where things went right, but where they went wrong.
Mhm.
When you're saying that you are open to people touring your building, I think it would be fantastic if you truly would be interested in maybe as you're really doing some of this, if you could because that would help with historic preservation. I know that's one of our goals is to try to get the building professionals and the contractors who already have so much on their plate to know and understand. And now we're being like, and learn all this.
Yeah.
So this would be such a fantastic opportunity, not just to have, Chancey and your GC walk a group through at the end, but during construction, if you guys could open it up to how you're working and, even this meeting, you could talk about like all these pieces, but it would be really beneficial for historic preservation and for sustainability if you guys would think about extending that into your construction process.
Yeah, gladly. And it really is a goal. We've been working on some public educational displays too, to have like how much energy is the solar panel generating and really honor the space too. So I think that's a part of historic preservation is, are we talking about the preservation of it and the value that's rendered through that? So it really is with integrity that we come before you with the goal that we can really find a good path forward. But I love that. And it really would be very much in line with our mission to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
coming.
Yes. Thank you for reading that verbatim. I think that goes along with the fact that so when she says 2-story addition, that's the gable roof. So that reads with what is in the staff report, and thank you for bringing that. Katie, are you going to say final comments?
Yeah, I think since there's so much discussion around this connector and the gable and the 1919 addition, I was thinking maybe I could just get a couple of final points from each commissioner on their feeling about the design presented and the 1919 removal. Again, in my mind, a concept review, although this looks pretty far along, is still theoretically speaking to me. Does anyone want to speak to that for further clarification for our applicant?
As a commissioner, the advice that I have is that I would like to see this property listed on the local historic register. And in spite of the lively, informative conversation tonight, I'm a little still left unclear exactly the extent of what really happened in 1919 and what effect that would have were this property to be listed.
Okay.
Otherwise, quite honestly, I don't have any other recommendations.
Holly, are you ready to?
I mean, as far as pointing to Secretary of the Interior's standards, I'm looking at almost all of Section 8, or Chapter 8, or number 8.
Standard 8.
Standard 8, thank you. That's a nice way, that's better. And I'm just really struggling to see how this meets nearly all of 8. And so that's just my feedback. Can we approve something that doesn't adhere to those standards? I just would have a hard time with it if you guys came back with this as the final plan.
Thanks. That was clear.
Okay.
Sally?
I feel like the two primary facades, in my opinion, are continue to be well defined, and yeah, I think I understand what you're saying about some of the materials, but also there's the horizontal siding, different width and material. So to me, like, I understand you have a really strong feeling, Molly, about the materials, but I feel like, I guess I don't have that same strong sense.
My feeling is more about the style and scale and placement than it is the materials. I'm having a hard time visualizing what the actual materials are, so I'm trying not to speak specifically to the material, except for the existing two-story 1919 addition that is currently changed in material from the rest of the historic house.
Okay. The scale is large, but I understand that you're trying to keep the finished floor the same elevation throughout, which is always a trick. And yeah, I feel like the front and the side primary facades are maintained, and I understand that how the two different ways of looking at what's happening directly next to the primary facade on 6th Street is we have two different feelings, but my feeling is that it allows the primary facade on that side to show itself. I think we talk about, if Marianne was giving one of her tours to a group of 5th graders, would you be able to see what was the original structure? And to me, I feel like not having a really firm grip on what that newspaper article was saying. But quite frankly, even I feel like the side structure is clearly a great example of what it initially looked like, and an articulated structure that people could walk through our town and drive through our town and understand what was initially there. So I would approve this.
Okay, thanks.
I'll just say I corroborate that. I mean, I know this isn't why this commission exists, but there's this reality, which is these things could just be torn down, period. And we're looking at a design so similar to what I experienced as a commissioner with the Willett project, and that I'm not citing the standards by doing this, and I appreciate that's what you've done, Molly. It's achieved so much of what we've discussed as commissioners through the years.
Okay.
Thanks. That was my epilogue.
Yeah. Oh, no, now it's my turn. Okay. I think I already said it, so I'll just restate it again since we're all taking turns. Ideally, we would retain the 1919 addition, move the connector back, and reduce the size of the addition. That's what I would prefer to see, that is in the most keeping with our design guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards, standard number 8. That said, I agree with Commissioner Capra. The benefits of having the Sustainability Council preserve a historic structure and then ideally talk about the benefits of sustainability in historic structures is huge. And I don't want one, I don't know, 500 square feet addition to diminish the fact that this is a huge step forward for historic preservation and sustainability. And we've wanted a partnership for a long time. And I agree, thank goodness, that the council, the resiliency is growing. And I think that's an amazing thing. And I think that you should have a downtown presence and should be growing the organization, because I stand behind it. And I think that there is many ways forward, including what they do in Breckenridge, which is building underneath the historic structure, for added square footage. So Thank you for coming forward with a concept review and being participants early on in the process and for listening to our feedback. And we look forward to seeing final designs and further. Even though we're not taking a motion, I'm supposed to ask for public comment before I close up. So on this 602 Oak, is there anyone here from the public that would like to make a comment? Cool, we did that. Yes, Caitlin.
Thank you very much. It seems like you've received some good feedback, both in terms of what you could do to change it and then also don't change it at all.
Good luck with that.
There you go. I also want to highlight they are doing geothermal there, which is very exciting. And I highly encourage you, Lacey and Chancey, to reach out and work with staff prior to your development plan submittal. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm sure they're like, what? Wait, hold on. How's everybody feeling? Anyone need a break?
Nope.
Okay.
Ready to rumble.
Okay, great. Caitlin, pull up your next thing. It's, we're moving into 6:18 PM and we're gonna move into our item for public hearing for decision. This is project number PL 2025-0340. We're talking about the Chief Theater. This is their development plan. So a little bit different than what it goes beyond a historic preservation review in some ways, and hopefully you've all had a chance to review it. Do you want to introduce the project or remind us where we were before we call in the applicant?
Yes.
Thanks.
So this is the Chief Theater. It has been the Chief Theater since its construction in 1926 and its first day of use in 1927. It is listed as a historic resource on the local register. It is also deemed not contributing to the historic district primarily because its current facade is covering a historic facade. And hopefully, if this project is to move forward, that will change because the applicant is proposing to restore the historic facade that is underneath the current facade. I think I'll have the applicant present, and then I might go into some details regarding change of facade over time. I hope my public comment time is done. I'll be quiet now. Change of marquee over time, change of window style over time. I do want to remind you that this is part of a development plan, which initially had 5 variances requested. Staff findings agree that they actually receive exemption for 2 of those variances. The exemption is for sign code because we're going to conditionally require that they apply for a historic sign permit if HPC does in fact determine that the new marquee is contributing to the historic nature of the building. And then the other exemption they receive is from our community design standards because our historic preservation standards and guidelines are the stricter code that we apply. This project must receive approval by historic preservation in order to move forward. So if, and by approval, I mean recommendation of approval for Planning Commission and City Council consideration. So if you do not provide that today, the applicant has been notified that they will have to come back to the Historic Preservation Commission. After the applicant presents, I can touch a little bit on, I don't like to use the term lot constraints because the building takes up the entire lot or parcel, but some lot constraints and how that kind of dictates their current design in addition to building height. I do want to remind the Historic Preservation Commission of what your powers and duties are in relation to this project. Your powers and duties are to strictly apply the Secretary of the Interior standards and our local historic design guidelines. Those do not account for things like parking. So please do your best to stay focused on the Secretary of the Interior standards and our local historic design guidelines. Even though parking is requested in a variance, we just want to be really clear on what we're all here to do.
Thanks. Okay, that said, will the applicant come up, introduce yourself, and introduce your project to us again? And just a reminder for the commissioners, we saw this as a concept review in April of 2025.
Good evening. Nice to meet you again. I'm Tom Davis. I am a principal, but I'm also the project architect for the Chief Theater here. Also here this evening is representing TCS Holdings, building owner, Trace Adams. Long history in the community, the Adams family. So that doesn't come with a dun-dun-dun-dun. Anyway, so to start the presentation, I mean, really what we're talking about here is a rehabilitation of the existing facade that's concealed behind the facade that we've all experienced since the 80s, if you've been in town that long. I think I should share my screen here, so I'm not exactly sure how we go about doing that. I think I need permission from somebody.
Does Mike have to get permission or do we do it?
Oh, there it goes.
Caitlin,
Okay. Okay, so I think you've all had the opportunity to review our development plan, and you can see coming out of our last meeting, the big area of focus was de-emphasizing kind of the new addition, the additional piece in the back, as well as looking into a marquee design. So what's most important is to understand that really what is significant here, the building, of course, is significant, and that's what we're hoping to restore. But what's significant is the use of the Chief over time, as it's contributed to the commercial growth of downtown Steamboat, and we're excited to continue that legacy. So I think just to help kind of frame the conversation, I think we really should dive into the Secretary of Interior standards. Standard number 1, a property shall be used for its historic purpose or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics. As most people have experienced the Chief over time, its use has been a theater. It's housed many different businesses over the years, but it is a theater and a place for people to gather to experience live performances as well as cinema theater. As our world has evolved and everybody has a private cinema in their living room, what we're proposing for our use is a continuation of that spirit of gathering, mostly in the sense of a performance venue. Standard number 2, the historic character or property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alteration of features and spaces that characterize the property should be avoided. The defining, as we had talked about in the beginning, is really the use of the Chief Theater in its current dilapidated state at the interior, salvaging the interior, and it has not been designated as significant, the interior. What is significant in the historic sense is the exterior facade, how you enter and how you use the space. And we hope to preserve the original historic character that's concealed under its current facade. Standard number 3, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development and adding of conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings should not be undertaken. One of the things we're most excited about is the continuation of the use of the space, obviously for gathering. But when we were looking into the design of our marquee, you can see in a lot of historical photos the vertical element of the marquee that's currently missing. And the original facade from the late 20s was designed to hold up a vertical marquee. And so we're really excited to bring that back in somewhat of a literal sense when we get into our marquee design. Number 4, most properties change over time. Those changes have acquired historic significance in their own right, shall be retained and preserved. Where I think we all agree that the addition from the 80s with the facade is not historically significant. One of the key features that we're excited about, not only bringing back that original marquee design, but the very ornate doors and the entry scene. I think that's, of all the features that remain, that entry into this space is iconic, and we very much intend on keeping that and integrating that into our new design. Number 5, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques for examples of craftsmanship that characterize a historic property shall be preserved. That's a lot of the fun we intend on having here. We don't know exactly what we're in for, as we've simply had some exploratory work to see what is concealed behind the existing facade. We don't know it until we get into it, but very much using the cues of what we discover as far as how the bricks are pointed, orientation of bricks, things of the such, and really bringing that back to life as a snapshot of its original construction in the late 20s. Number 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced. The original design and color and visual qualities should be maintained. So that's really what we're trying to lift this current facade so we can reveal what's underneath. And we have quite a bit of evidence from the Treader Pioneers for all the times Winter Carnival has been in front of that structure to really work diligently on restoring its original facade. This we don't know if we're in for, but significant archaeological resources affected by the project shall be protected and preserved. We don't know. We are proposing on excavating in order to create a basement space for world-class music venues to come and perform, stage, green rooms, as well as building bathrooms and some AV closets. So we might discover some interesting stuff when we are excavating. If there is any archaeological discoveries, that will be included as far as protecting and following the standards. This is probably an interesting one. Well, number 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. We have the good function of not only having to diminish the front facade and stepping it back, but what this does is it protects the integrity of the historic facade because our new addition primarily is being constructed at the 15-foot setback that's required in the zone district. Number 10, new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form integrity of the historic property and its environment is unimpaired. Clearly, the vast majority of the new construction is beyond the rear facade as far as our new construction that we're proposing. And as far as the construction and rehabilitation of the existing facade, we're probably going to have to reinforce it for its proposed use as well as future alterations, not knowing what we're in for necessarily from a structural standpoint and having to support the new marquee design. We will be bolstering up the existing historic facade. So one talk, and a lot of the feedback that we got from you last time was, how can we really endeavor on a marquee design that honors the lineage and history of changed marquees, come up with something that's historically relevant, unique, but continue sort of the story of these facades instead of, and marquees in particular, instead of just simply repeating what has been done in the past, as this is a storied topic with the Chief Theater through the decades, a new, fresh marquee that has a lot of relevance in its massing. When we travel, we did a big deep dive case study looking at marquees in towns throughout North America and vibrant communities. And we're excited for the marquee that we're proposing here. Seen in context in town, I think, there's obviously concern about the mass of the rear facade as a function of the form within. But I think it's very important to understand how the world is experienced as really, you're never just staring at a facade in an architectural form. And when you look at the downtown master plan, as well as the zone district allowable height at 38 feet, our structure is commensurate with the massing and forms of other structures in downtown, and will continue as downtown evolves to find itself situated amongst similar massing. We're excited to answer any questions that you have. This is hopefully just skimming the surface, and we can address any questions you guys have.
Cool. Thank you. Good summary. I appreciate it. We'll let staff run us through and then let you know if we have any questions. We will. Caitlin, are you ready to pull up yours?
Stop sharing. I mean, I'll never stop sharing, but.
Sharing. Seeing.
Can we see more of the marquee trip?
Yeah. That's such a fascinating.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. I started to remember marquees from the Midwest. I never, I know it's a marquee and I know we're talking about signs, but it is its own unique form.
Mhm.
I literally.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Commissioner Capper is just talking about how unique marquees are. And are you ready?
No,
I'm just
please feel
feeling-
free to
I'm
summarize.
just feeling dead air.
Field trip.
A marquee field trip.
Really, I would do that.
Yeah. So they actually worked with a designer out of Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, and all she does is marquees. And they're some of the most amazing marquees. And she does them, I mean, for buildings just like this, right? Historic buildings that are like, oh, wow, our marquee's about to fall. And we need a new marquee.
A lecture by this person, like.
Yeah, she should come.
Yeah,
Well,
you should come to
I
town.
assume she would come to town, hopefully. We will.
Just
We want to
saying.
meet her.
I'm I just got really excited.
I was actually
That
like,
doesn't usually happen in
I
historic
was like
preservation.
stalking her Instagram.
Okay,
last
yeah, I know.
so
I'm like,
It was, it was
what?
a real thing.
That's-
Also, did you guys know there's a Theater Historical Society of America, which
Oh,
is another fun deep
I
dive.
should join that. That's being like
Yeah.
part of the National Hotels of America.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Theaters.
Their whole thing is just
Wow, how do you even
for theater.
sleep at night? Oh, you should read the minutes. That's what
All right.
okay. Thank you.
Back on the theater train. So I want to first go over what these variances are. Because the variances, two of them at least. Actually, I would, from a staff perspective, I would say there's one variance that is really of consideration for HPC, and that is building height. The variance for increased volume to the rear setback. As you all know, we typically are all right with alterations to the rear of a historic building. I also want to start off by re-acknowledging, this is something that you said, Sally, in the last presentation, and that Tom kind of just stated, but the world is experienced in cascading moments of ever-changing visual perspectives. Some of the photographs that I will highlight for you in attachment C, I think it's really, and they're all historic photographs, I think it's really clear to see this on how just the existing Chief Theater now and the Chief Theater back in 1959 and back in 1938 looked like it was at crazy different heights throughout time, simply from the perspective and the angle of the photograph and how it was taken. So I just want to give you a few reference points. Keep in mind, this parapet wall right here is not historic. You will see in, well, it is kind of historic. It is not to the period of significance that they will be bringing back or proposing to bring back. I've been using these kind of cornerstone blocks on the Sam Steamboat Art Museum building as a reference point as we look at the historic photographs in terms of that changing of height, which I just think is so interesting. Overall, the building as it measures from what they're proposing from kind of this restored parapet is 22 feet, 22 and a half feet. And because I deem
Say that one more time.
22 and a half feet to 2.5 from the top of the parapet that they are proposing to restore. I'll go to that image in a second, but let's just, I guess I can go to it now, if that's helpful. Let's just stay at this one real quick. Yeah. So in terms of visual perspective and what height does to the visual characteristics of a historic building, I think that's important to keep in mind. So rather than measuring, well, what's the total building height from the ground where a person would be staying? We're looking at what is that total building height from the top of that parapet, right? And so they're proposing to add on 15.5 feet. So right here, I think these photographs are wonderful. You can really see how they've pulled from different eras of the marquee. I will say in our research, thanks to the Tread of Pioneers, I think that both the marquee and the facade have changed potentially multiple times per decade since 1927. So that's something to keep in mind. If you kind of try to match up where the height of this parapet wall is with those cornerstones, just kind of keep a visual note of that.
Do we know what the height of that 1954 one is?
We don't know the exact height, but I think in their preliminary research, again, it's a little hard to discern when you're matching it up to the neighboring building, but keep in mind when you dig into a facade rehabilitation, it's an investigation. So.
But you helped because those cornerstones.
Mhm. There was a discussion with HPC the last time regarding these glass blocks. And I think overall, if we're looking at the period of significance between 1926 and 1946, which is where we can see in photographic documentation that the facade mostly stayed the same with an asterisk at the word mostly. These were not there. So again, if you kind of look at this photograph, you can see if this little call out box wasn't here, the facade looks much lower than when you're at the other angle, looking from the bottom. All right, I'm going to keep scrolling here. Does anyone have in their packet what page the plan set actually begins on? Since this is like a very, very long packet. Right, just keep scrolling.
Top, actually.
No, I should have put it at the top.
Oh, that is at the very bottom, sorry.
Okay, I think this is another great example of this kind of like changing in perspectives. And just to get a visual sense of how tall the SAM building is comparatively. And now here, when we look at the height of the chief to the SAM building, and there's a reason why I'm going through all of this, I promise. And here again, you can see it looks like it's almost the same height as the SAM building.
How much higher, just curious, we're talking about height, how much higher will the chief building be than Sam when it's all said and done?
I would have to ask the architect that exactly, but let me,
We'll get to it. I'm sorry.
yeah, let's get to that. This is one of my favorite photographs because I just love this lady right here. I mean, because this was the Ed Root Insurance Company.
Wait, you selling insurance?
Yeah, she would sell me some insurance. Sorry. Tom, could you please provide the height of the actual second story addition comparatively to the SAM building versus the staircase? If you can give me two different heights compared to the SAM building, that would be great.
I don't know if I have the software loaded to give the actual heights. I can look into it and try to answer that for you.
That would be great. I can keep presenting and speaking towards these historic photographs while you're looking into it.
And I don't know if we have the second story. I mean, because we don't know where the Steamboat Art Museum second story is, but you're talking
Yeah.
about the roof or the second story?
The roof line.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't build.
So I would say the best way to approach that, Molly, is we're going 15.5 feet up from the top of the reconstructed parapet wall.
It is drawn, the adjacent building.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there in the packet here. There we go. I'll get there. So here is some context massing for you, Molly.
Mhm.
Keep in mind where we're looking at. And so this is the top right here of the chief second story. Keep in mind, and it's pushed back 15 feet. And then this is the top of the SAM building. So I would say it's definitely a few feet higher. These are basically emergency. This is your elevator and staircase. And I will make a comment about that. Those are higher, but they're still pushed back.
Look, they're proposing 38 feet.
Mhm.
Yeah, like it's 38 feet tall total.
Counting the stairwell and the elevator shaft. That's an additional height above 38,
And that's by code, that is not considered part of,
but it's still a visual impact.
yes.
Okay, then you can answer that question. What's the height difference from the top of the, will you scroll down just a tiny bit?
To the top of the roof, to the top of the,
Stair.
whatever they're called,
Yeah,
right here.
Yeah.
Appearances.
So are we into question mode? Are you done with your presentation then?
I'm kind of not done. If you guys
No.
could just wait.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm happy to answer like all these
Can-
questions,
it's a
but
little more free
Well,
throwing,
I think-
but
I think
I
for
kind of
the,
want to run through how
it's fine.
the report is laid out, which
Yeah.
first we talk about what is the height of the multi-level addition,
right.
which is 38 feet.
Yeah,
To
let-
Katie's point.
Yeah, I think we're getting happily distracted. So we're talking about a
Because
variance.
it's so nice.
Look, it's 22.5. They're adding 15 to make it 38.
Yes.
Let's go.
All right. So now, if you look at where the staircase, this one example, we know that this is higher than 38 feet.
Yep.
This is what I mean when we're talking about site constraints and lot constraints. They are required for the capacity that they are looking at to have an elevator to provide ADA access, just like what the last project we saw wanted to do. They're also required to have a fire escape and stairs. The only place to put this is towards the front of the building, because if they are going to put it towards the rear of the building, it is going to significantly impact the ability to have a stage, which would impact the proposed use as an event venue, which continues its historic use. And so that is a really big consideration, not just for the visual characteristics, the overall height, massing, and scale, but it's this project's ability to continue its historic use. So that's where I was getting to. And you can see here even placement at the center of the structure would impact its historic use and ability to continue forward into the modern age in terms of interior view sheds. I do wholeheartedly agree with every single standard that the applicant pointed out. I would say they meet almost every single standard for the Secretary of the Interior and our local historic design guidelines, similarly to the last project that HPC commented on. Of course, we would love it if things could be smaller, but we are in modern times and we have to have the ability to provide economic benefit, provide continued use of a structure that has been vacant for a very long time. And this project is rehabilitating the historic facade. It is pushed back 15 feet, 4 inches. So that's actually more than what the minimum is for our zone district. And it is more than typically what is required of local design guidelines for a commercial storefront. The building height at 38 feet, if they had an apartment on the uppermost level, they would not need a variance for that building height. And it would not be included in this packet today because that is approvable per our zoning standard. So I want to be very clear about that. So in regards to massing and scale along Lincoln Avenue, this building could be built meeting our standards. Let's say it wasn't a historic theater on our local register, to 38 feet. And that's approvable without a variance for a zone district.
No.
Yes, if it
If it's
had,
providing residential, then it can go up to 38 feet.
That's
which
what
is
I just
they're
said.
asking for a variance. They're not
That's-
providing residential, so it wouldn't be approved.
that's what I just said. If this project had a living unit on the uppermost
living unit,
story,
yeah.
had a residential living unit on the uppermost story, then they would not need a variance. That's correct.
Keyword was if.
I got hung up on living
Well,
for some reason.
I guess
was
you
really
don't have to
thinking
live in a
residential.
residential unit. This is another rendering of it where you can see the height of what we would call the multi-level story right here is still slightly higher than the SAM building, where this brings it up above 38 feet, but it is not solid across the top. They also took your design suggestions in terms of altering the windows and also with the materials of the new construction. This is a development plan and it has to meet a variety of city policies, goals, and intents across the community plan, the historic preservation plan, the downtown plan, and the Howells Hill plan. Those are the plans that city council or that staff has identified that it would meet. And it does meet, it's all outlined in your packet, multiple policies across multiple plans. One of which I would like to highlight is the continued view that will be accessible to Howells Hill and Emerald Mountain and Mount Warner. There's another perspective. From a staff perspective, the new materials are compatible with the blonde brick.
I'm sorry.
Would you like to say your comments before you leave? Since you are on the Main Street Board as well. No, okay. That's okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Capra. We know it's important or else you wouldn't do this. So it's for the meeting minutes, it's 6:54 and then Commissioner Capra has excused herself. Carry on, Caitlin.
So I'm not going to ramble on too much here. I think what we're looking at is pretty straightforward. They're rehabilitating the facade. They're building up to 38 feet. And the new addition is pushed back more than 15 feet from the historic facade. Do you have questions for staff before you have questions for the applicant?
I have a question for staff. I'm just curious, I hear what you're saying as far as setback and all of that. I'm just wondering, to your point about it, if there had been housing in it, the 38 feet would not have been a problem, but would a building with housing have been approved to have a rooftop deck that then also added those towers? I'm sorry, I don't know what the right term is. What's the elevator and stair?
You can call it that. It's like.
Can we call them
We're
towers?
calling them appurtenances.
Call them what?
Yes.
Egress.
Anyway. So that's a really great question, Molly. And there is a section in our community development code that does state rooftop patios are encouraged across commercial Old Town, and they are not limited to whether you're providing residential or commercial. And I do believe we have some commercial spaces that do provide patios. I don't know if they are considered rooftop patios or not.
So the height of the buildings that currently have residential units in them that got to the 38 feet also currently have an additional height for these towers on them. I'm trying to get an idea of scale, like how in the future could this be compared to other buildings that could be going in? Are we setting a new precedence for having 38 plus 6 or whatever this is, plus 10?
So I think the difference here is the capacity that supports the use requires fire safety and code and ADA. If you're having a residential unit like the one at the corner of 7th, their capacity isn't proposed at 800, right?
So, and I'll get to you in a second. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
But
don't believe they have.
No, that house in place on 7th and Lincoln is residential, does not have a rooftop, and is probably near there. And then we're all familiar with here, the fire
Mhm.
and the new city building
Mhm.
is, don't know for sure, probably near And I remember the fire building got a variance because they needed extra for their stairwell training evacuations. So they're probably near that.
I believe they're at 42 feet. I think that the applicant could confirm that. They've done some studies on the other surrounding buildings.
42 at its
Got to start over.
The fire station is 42 at its peak, and the top of the stair tower appears, just by my scaling of the two-scale drawing, at 48. So taller than that for those two towers.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, any questions for the applicant, including that one?
Including that, yes.
Or not, I don't know.
I have a question. The one way to keep that 10-foot egress tower looking slightly smaller would be to play with a 42-inch rail or a 48-inch rail instead of a 36. I mean, it seems like if we could make that handrail, at the top of the code instead of the bottom of the code, then that starts shortening the look of those towers. I'm not speaking for anybody else here, obviously, but I think that horizontal band is one height. And then I can see that you're trying to differentiate and kind of do a little shadow line and change the material to set that visually, optical illusionally, pull that back a touch. And that might be just one way to help do that, to make that rail at the top of the code number, which maybe you were doing anyway. Were you doing that anyway? What is the rail height there?
So probably for safety reasons, we'd be 42 inches per code as opposed to 36, which is allowed in
Yeah.
a residential application.
Okay, so you go to, yeah,
So
I
the
think.
parapet height.
Yeah, I think the parapet just, I just think there's little games you can play, especially since the proportions are pretty tight. I think when you're looking at the towers and then that middle section. So that would just be my one question about that, or.
Can I just quickly clarify on the height calculation? So that fancy word, appurtenance, essentially, yes, it's a lovely word. It is a necessary evil for egress and safety reasons. Obviously, we do everything in our power to try to mitigate the visual impacts, but the way the code reads is you are allowed 10% of your roof area is allowed to be in appurtenance. And so what classifies as appurtenances are oftentimes chimneys, stair volumes, parapet walls that are less than 48 inches are considered an appurtenance. So we are limited to 10% of the overall roof area. And I believe I'd have to look at our calculations. I think we're at like 9.8%. And that's not unique to this structure. That's any structure in downtown. Actually, in the city of Steamboat is allowed the 10% appurtenance. And you can go through the variance process for going beyond that 10%. And as far as the overall height is concerned, 46 feet, 48 feet, 52 feet. For appurtenances, there's no mandate for the actual height because they're seen as essentially a necessary component of a building, primarily around life safety. With an occupied rooftop deck, you need to get people off of it. And also in the zone district, rooftop gardens are very much encouraged, and that's part of the overall kind of plan, downtown plan.
And so to Molly, to your point, would this be setting a precedence? That would be no, because it is allowed by code while they are still requesting a variance because they don't have the residential unit. If they did have a residential unit, they are still allowed to build 10% of an appurtenance.
Is my estimate of that being 10 foot high from the finished floor of the rooftop?
I mean, we're really required a 6'8" door. It doesn't have to be any taller than that by code, and then whatever the structure. So I haven't measured it. We do need to allow probably 8 inches for structure and some drainage. So 6'8", 7 foot, more like 8 feet, I think, diminished.
And you guys have played around with different types of lifts that might not require so much space. Because there's
Yes.
lots of different elevators these days.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, and maybe I'm being presumptuous here, but in the historical context of massing for new structures and additions, alterations, the idea is that it wants to be diminished relative to the significant component. The significant component, of course, is our facade that we're trying to restore. And so everything that we've done has really been an attempt to really diminish the visual aesthetic. Obviously, there's a volumetric component that we're never going to get around. But the idea is that the historic facade is ornate with its blonde bricks. We are very plain Jane, very essentially trying to set a canvas and a nod towards, more of a warehouse and a utilitarian structure, and really bring the perception towards the facade where you have the entry as well as the marquee. And obviously, it is 38 feet, so it is high.
Yeah, and I think maybe a little bit what Molly had mentioned to Chelsea, and I know we're all working with pieces of paper and our software, but it does look like whoever put the presentation together did cut off the towers on a couple different pages here, and it's probably a good idea, especially when we're going to be talking about height, to kind of not crop that off the cover sheet.
Yeah, maybe we could share that last image. I think that's,
I mean, like, it's cool, but we know the play here. Like, we can tell you're cutting it off.
I mean, I can
Because
see the
it's
tower. Are we
substantially-
not looking at the same picture
Yeah, but
here?
we're looking at a rooftop addition, and your primary image has cut off part of the rooftop addition. I think I'm just trying to restate what I think Sally was saying.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that Molly said to the last one, and I've said it to other people when it's like, oh, well, that's interesting. You're showing all those setbacks except for the one that
Yeah,
is the regular one.
Yeah.
There's just ways
Yeah.
to
no
present
pointing
or
fingers. Everybody does it.
makes it,
So, yep.
when the main topic is the height, then that would maybe be one thing that we wouldn't want to cut off.
Do you have the image that was used on the cover photo, the one that I just had up, Tom, that you could maybe zoom out from?
I think it's okay.
Sure.
I think we understand. I
helpful.
think you just got called out, and that's all right. As
Yeah, I
did the
mean-
last applicant.
well, and the idea as, tethering back in the historical context is trying to create, a community hub that is relative to the use of the structure in time. And, it was motion picture with fixed seating, and we're very much trying to bring the community in. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can you go back to that picture that was just in question of the tower? Okay, yeah, that one. I noticed that there's a window on the Sam building that faces this property.
Second story.
Second story window that comes over the rooftop of the current Chief Theater. Is that in front of the gray tower? I'm sorry.
So they have actually worked with the SAM building and please correct me if I'm wrong, and they've discussed placement of the addition. And from what I've been told by the SAM staff, they're actually happy to cover that window
It's going to get
because
covered though.
it's going to be covered. But that does not mean that it's not reversible. That's a point that I did want to hit on with one of the standards. I mean, same goes if someone wants to purchase the Chief Theater from Trace in 20 years, they can remove this addition if
It-
they would like to. But
it
they're
also-
happy to have it covered because it helps protect their collection, and that's one of their storage rooms for their collection.
And quite honestly, I don't know if it would be allowed by code, because typically there's this thing called fire safe distance. So when you're built up to a 0 property line, you're not really allowed a window anyway. So I don't know in a historical context with Steamboat Art Museum as we're building at our property line. I don't know how that works, and I don't know when that window came online for the Steamboat Art Museum. So that would be an interesting,
Right, like they're not
Topic.
counting on that for egress.
correct.
The fact that it's there at all.
We wouldn't want to diminish somebody's ability to get out.
No.
And it's a safety hazard for them regardless of where our second story and up structure is located, just relative to the property line.
And I just have one comment about the material choices, and this picture is the best one to show it. I actually feel like the historic facade is washed out by the material choice of the center piece behind it. It's almost like they're too similar in color. And so my personal preference would be to help make the original facade pop more. I'm not saying it should be a whole black wall across the whole front of that second story, because that would not help our case for the massing and height. But that's just my personal preferences. I'd like to see the historic part pop a little bit more against the other material.
We very much would like to continue to work, and I see this as an evolution, especially when we get to the original bricks, and continuing to work with the planning department and you really to make sure everything is up to snuff. And
I can't
Yeah.
point to a Secretary of the Interior standard on that one, but
No, I think that's a great point. And I mean, it's also slightly difficult because the pictures we have of the historic brick are black and white.
right.
And so while we all can envision what blonde brick looks like, we don't know where the differentiation in tone is. And so it's one of those investigations. So it sounds like the applicant is willing to continue to work with staff and receive HPC's feedback once that is uncovered to help that final material, probably color and hue, Molly.
Okay.
I like it. Just, I know it's not great to give people conflicting, but I
okay.
think I like the, I think the material, just that I called it earlier an optical illusion, but just that it is trying to, it's a play on trying to pull something forward and push something back. And I think that if that is all a very similar color, then we're going to really lose that for my eye personally. I think that pulling back. And I also feel like that, you know, when looking at all projects, but specifically something like this, where we're looking at the entire street, is so profoundly important. And, you know, some of the new things that we're seeing woven in, I feel like this is kind of a good yarn that kind of that starts weaving together that this was done in this year. Like, I think that's something that as we go through, you know, any town where you can say that's the 70s, that's the 80s, that's the 90s, and people are going to be able to look and see that this modification was done in 2025. I think that's something that I think is important for current, you know, to give accolades to current architecture and the style that we're in that will come and go.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear what you're saying, and I know it makes it hard to
I know.
give conflicting advice, but I like the colors.
And change it. Again, we're
But it's just a discussion. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not telling
Yeah.
you what, I just think that's part of the discussion.
There's got to be a happy medium in there somewhere. Can I ask one more question? I forgot that I had another one. I'm just, again, a little more out of curiosity. At the VFW, when they took off the existing facade, they knew that there were historic windows behind there. Do we know if there's any historic material behind the current walls?
That's a loaded question. There may be. However, the windows have changed significantly over time. And it's kind of hard to pin. I believe the windows that are there may be some of those ice block windows that they put in from 1956. And those don't really align with that period of significance that they're trying to move the facade to. So it's kind of like, do you keep those windows and then just forego the remainder of the brick? Yes or no? If you can try to align it within a range of time. But again, we don't know because it's covered up.
We don't know, but this commissioner so badly wants you to save them and put them in the bar.
Yes, please. Put some lighting behind it.
That's neither here nor there. Well, it's kind of here on the glass blocks.
Well, and as a reminder, you all can condition your recommendation for approval, including Molly's comments on materials, including oftentimes the HPC will condition reuse and salvaging of materials. So I just want to remind the commission of that.
I think I actually have another staff question, and I'm sorry, I'm talkative tonight.
Okay.
Oh, please do it.
The awning and the sign,
What awning?
this new awning and this new sign.
This
Yeah.
portion.
Yeah,
Okay.
what is it called? Is it not an awning?
Marquee?
The marquee?
Yeah.
Thank you. Hearken to a historic time period, but they're not the original pieces. And
Correct.
So are we okay in our standards by being similar and not being disingenuous by trying to fake it, I guess. I struggle with that standard of make it similar, but not too similar to fool people into thinking it's something it's not.
Well, I think we all know what the current marquee looks like, right?
We do, but
we do.
people who move here next year won't know what it looked like.
That's correct.
this year.
So I think that they are pulling from inspiration, but they're not aligning with specific architectural and decorative styles that we would have seen on the chief as were present in the past, if that makes sense. I can go back to some of the old marquees if you would like. We're also relying heavily on guidance from the state. So it wasn't just the facade that kind of precluded it from being a contributing property to the National Historic District. They also did not have specific guidance in terms of align or reconstruct a marquee based on this specific period in time, because the marquee has changed multiple times and multiple times throughout a decade. And so you really can't align one marquee. And so that is when it is okay to construct a new marquee, as long as you feel that it is contributing to the historic significance of the structure. So that's a question for you all tonight in your discussion.
Okay, I just know there is that section that says replace it to be as similar. And so I hear what you're saying. This is just where the gray area is. It says replace something to be similar as possible to your reference point, to the historic element that you're taking off if it can't be salvaged. And because there have been so many versions, it's something that's roughly that. The point isn't what it specifically says, but it's just that you're supposed to recreate something if you can. If you can't salvage it, recreate it. And since we have so many versions, there's nothing to recreate. And so then we also have the point in one of the standards, and I'm sorry, I haven't memorized all of the numbers yet,
It's okay.
that says,
You don't want it to look super old.
Yeah, that was part of the presentation, maybe.
right, don't try to trick people into
So-
thinking it's something it's not. And this looks like it could have been there since well, I don't know, 50s, 40s, maybe even. It doesn't look modern is my point. It harkens back to a different time. And so that's where I'm just a little questioning the standards in our decision on that.
So I'm
Do I
gonna
like it? Yes.
I'm gonna capture two things there because I think you're kind of meshing two different standards.
Okay.
And then meshing some of our local historic design guidelines. Also keep in mind our trainings that we received from Logan Simpson and how we've been encouraged to explore additions and materials that might be more complementary, right, to the structures. In my mind, and I mean, we can do a quick Google search if we want to, but a marquee is a marquee. and they all have pretty standard features. They have open channel lettering. They have exposed light bulbs. They have places where you can swap the lettering in and out. They typically have a vertical sign and some sort of motif, regardless of if that marquee was built in 1920 or if it was built today. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of a marquee, right?
That's fair. That answers it then.
Okay, and then I will just clarify for the record, I think the other thing that maybe you were blending into two is the idea of not falsely representing a period of time by taking an architectural feature from building A and moving it to building B.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we were kind of meshing those two
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like the applicant would have been more closely doing if they tried to recreate this to align with 1929.
Yes, I have similar, and it doesn't, need an answer, but I think what you're saying and what I'm thinking is the same, which is, well, if there's been so many iterations of the marquee and we're using those iterations to construct a new one, how will the public know that this isn't historic? And I don't know.
I mean, we all love putting more signs on buildings, but I think that that's something, and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, but they'd be willing to explore in terms of maybe putting something on the corner of the sign that says established in 2025 or 2026, or having some sort of signage. I think that is helpful, though.
Right. Well, however you do that, that doesn't make the public think that the whole building was constructed. Like what
Right.
we dealt with across.
Well, I think we can just, a simple sign that says the marquee was constructed in 2025, I
Established.
think is
Yeah.
pretty clear,
Yeah.
rather than what the quarry building did.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have plans for that?
We're open to all suggestions. Yes.
We've never done a
think,
marquee either.
In the historic preservation world, there's a real distinction between a restoration project and a rehabilitation. And obviously the concern is that we're blurring, where we're making it appear as if it was all constructed back then. And I think the contemporary nature of our design is very much a nod towards history. And from my perspective, it's very distinguished in its kind of contemporary, because it's very sharp lines, bigger marquee, and has some distinction between its previous iterations. So I don't know if that clarifies things or muddies the water any further.
And on that, I just wanted to quickly state, because I appreciate you saying that, but I do think that in the written narrative from you guys, from the applicant, it says that the marquee will be renovated. And I just want us to all be clear that this is a new construction and there's nothing renovated about it. So as we move forward with our narrative, is making sure the public understands that by our word choices, right? And you just did that eloquently, thank you. But let's check our text too.
Yeah, that's a great
Because
point.
renovation, to see.
It's very much not being renovated.
Redesign.
Yes,
Say, that's cool.
rehabilitated is really what we need to stick to.
Yeah, I agree with rehabilitated because, rehabilitation allows you to reconstruct. It allows you to build new construction, such as an addition. It allows you to repair and preserve. And that's why we stick to rehabilitation, and that's why that's in our code.
From a public perspective, the way the packet came out to us and the way maybe the public might be seeing some things, I just want to make sure that the public is aware that, as we've stated many times in this meeting, this facade has gone through many iterations over the years, and the current marquee was put up in what year?
Between 1986 and 1987.
Which is less than 50 years, which makes it not protected anyway. And I'm not sure what the what's the word I'm looking for? Can it be saved? Like if you wanted to keep the existing sign, could it be saved or is it damaged beyond repair at this point?
No, she's fine.
Oh, really?
I don't know. You tell me. Looks functional to me.
Well, I think it all tethers back to what's significant and the
good
period
guess.
of significance.
So
And with that, I will say the current marquee seems to be of an inaccurate reconstruction of one of their first marquees. And so from a historic preservation standpoint, I would say even if, you know, she's a still standing, it's pretty historically inaccurate, especially if we're looking to rehabilitate the facade.
my first glance at the whole thing was I got very upset that the existing sign was going away because I was under the impression that it was original. And so I just want to be clear to the public that it was not
Who
original.
will also be confused.
Yes. So just putting it out there.
We have some homework.
Save some backlash.
Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant before I move to public comment?
I think this marquee is, I think this was a tricky one to get the proportions right
Mm-hmm.
on this. And I wasn't quite sure how that was going to be done. And often I do have something in my head of like, oh, this is how this should go. And I didn't know. And I'm just really impressed with this. I think that is really nicely done. I think the homework that you did with your consultant shows. And yeah, thank you for listening to that feedback from last time.
Nice. Okay, well, there were people here. Is there anyone here online that would like to make public comment on this project? Hey, Toby does. Yeah, raise your little icon hand. Toby, you can talk.
You're muted, Toby.
Unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, you did it.
I
Thanks, Toby.
apologize. Sorry, guys. So I had one question and one comment. I did have a question about the appurtenances and the stair towers. I just wondered if that was, if those were necessary for egress onto the roof for the theater, or if they were necessary because there's a roof deck. So I think that that's an important question that I can ask the applicant at some point, but I thought it might be useful for your discussion as well to understand what why that height on those appurtenances and those stair towers is needed. And then another point that I just wanted to mention is that might muddy your waters, so I apologize for that. Signs have a different historic significance, so they don't have to be as old as buildings. Signs only have to be 25 years old. So depending on how that fits in with the rest of the chief, the marquee could be historic from a sign standard. But as it's related to the building, it might not be. So again, that's just some mud for your waters, but the marquee itself could be historic as a sign, because signs don't have to be 50 years old. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I can see who you are, but can you tell all of us?
Oh, I apologize. I'm Toby Stoffer. I am a planner with the planning department, but I'm going to be reviewing this for a staff level review with the development plan. So my comments are really just sort of ancillary to you guys tonight. I don't think I'm real public. So.
Okay, well, thank you anyway. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak about this?
It looks like Bill Latoza is online and he just needs to unmute. We can see you.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yes, you did it.
Yay. I've been
Can
struggling
you
here.
introduce yourself? Introduce yourself and you have 3 minutes, Bill.
Okay, I'll be faster than that. I'm Bill Latoza. I live on Valdez-Aire in Steamboat Springs. I'm board chair of Historic Routt County. Hopefully you received a letter probably late in the day and you've not had a chance to read it. And I don't have enough time, being only allowed 3 minutes to go through the entire letter. But one of the things that I'm really concerned about, I feel confident about the preservation. I applaud the owners for keeping the chief a theater and as a community space. I think that's great. My concern is in the variances. And my 2 or 3 page letter goes into those quite common. But my main concern is the addition and the height of the addition. And at the very beginning of the presentation, Caitlin showed a photograph from, I think, 2008 that Erica had taken. And it's either from the center of the street or the other parking or the other sidewalk across the street. And one of the beautiful things about Steamboat and makes Steamboat Steamboat is this community character. And this character is having the ability of being a little town in a valley surrounded by mountains. The photograph that Erica took from 2008 clearly shows that from wherever they were standing in the street or on the other sidewalk, as you could see Howelson Hill. These large additions that we're doing and giving variances are setting a really horrible precedent. And I think one of the things, the character defining features of Steamboat is that we're allowed to look at the surrounding historic view corridors, and this building is blocking it, or these new proposed additions. And it just seems to be a negative community character that we're not going to get back by allowing and handing out these variances. The other issue about variances is once you give them to Bill, the next door neighbor, Bob, wants them. And then Carl down the street wants the same variances. I think it's a horrible precedent. And although I applaud the efforts of the owner to rehabilitate the building, and I know that that can be done and we have the talent to do that, we're just going to lose all of our scenic view corridors. And I think if you're standing at the post office and you look towards the Yampa, there couldn't be a clearer message than the air conditioners on top of that building blocking Howelson Hill and the Yampa. And I'm afraid that's the direction our city is going in. I know we're not supposed to be talking about parking in this committee, but that's also a concern.
His 3 minutes is up.
Okay, I'm up. Read my letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Is there anyone else online that would like to speak about tonight's project?
I do have Bill's letter here that was given to us at the beginning of this meeting. I'm more than happy to pass it around if you all would like to see it. We also had public comment come in before 3 o'clock, which is allowed, that wasn't able to be sent out to you as Jesse was setting up for our meeting. And I did tell Lisa Popovich that I would read her public comment, if
Okay.
that is all right with you all.
Yes, please.
I have made sure to forward you what was provided to me digitally from Historic Routt County. I'm unsure if it's the same letter that was presented to me in paper format. And I also did forward you Lisa Popovich's comment.
Okay.
And I also spoke with Lisa by phone today, and this represents her board of Main Street's perspective on the proposal, not just her viewpoint as an individual. So Lisa Popovich, Main Street, I have reviewed the plan for the renovations of the Chief and Main Street Steamboat Springs, supports this application. This building's rehabilitation is essential to the overall success of the downtown. We do not object to the request to take the height to the residential level. That's all.
Thank you. I was like settling in for a.
No, she was pretty succinct in that.
And the previous person's letter was sent out?
The historic Route County one, yes, and I forwarded them after I found out Jesse wasn't able.
Okay.
So although historic Route County gave me they gave us a separate letter at the beginning of this meeting, so.
Okay.
Yeah. And if there are no other people, I would like a moment to respond to public comment.
I think they've had time to call it up if they have. So we will now close public comment. Okay, go ahead.
I appreciate Toby's comments, and she is absolutely correct. A site only has to be 25 years of age to be
Sign.
a sign, yes, so that would be the marquee, to be considered for eligibility for designation to our local register. However, I would not deem the current sign eligible for historic designation. The building itself, though, is already designated, and that sign is part of the building, right? And so, as you'll see in your recommended motion, if you were to recommend approval, there's one condition that says the applicant apply for a historic sign permit, which means that you would be determining that this new marquee contributes to the character of the historic facade and the historic building. Our sign code does allow us to do that. And then I appreciate Bill's comments in terms of being confident about the preservation project. I think we've heard about the concerns regarding the height and community character. I would just like to remind HPC that our CDC does allow this height. It also does allow for 10% addition of certain features such as egress, and that height is supported across a variety of plans. And it is listed within our code. I am trying to find the photograph that Bill mentioned regarding blocking view sheds of Howelson Hill.
Page 40 of the, oh, no, it's not. It is 2008 thing? Yeah, the 2008 photo that you can see Howelson behind it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really clearly there. I
What page is it in your PDF viewer?
I broke it out.
I just want to, okay. Once we have that up, I would like everyone to think about standing across the street from any building on Commercial Old Town and how much of Howelson Hill can you technically see when there's a building in front of you. Additionally, I think that the rooftop patio opens up a continued view shed of Howelson Hill and other views that are blocked across our community. And they are accessible for anyone to go up and view Howelson Hill at a different vantage point, which does meet the Howelson Hill Preservation Plan. So that is my comment in terms of height and community character. Again, I think what's most important is maintaining the character of the historic facade. That's all.
Thanks. Okay, commissioners, it's just us now. Let's have some deliberation here and move towards a decision.
A recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sally, did you want to speak to anything
Um,
or ask of us?
I've asked my questions. I think this is good for the community. I think it's a well thought through design. I think trying to do what the new owner is trying to do here is beyond the building, which is what we're here for, the built environment. But there's no doubt that part of the historic preservation behind the built environment, the core of all of it, is the humanity. And I think I really applaud you for coming and doing something that matters. And it matters to how we live and how our children live and how our children's children live in this town. And knowing that you're a descendant of many generations, I think it's beautiful that you've decided to keep this at the theater and have a really open mind about what that looks like. I think it's really neat that you've taken into account in your programming and design and your concept of how you'd like this to happen, that we all are sort of have our own devices that allow us to watch movies and things like that. But what's really important is the coming together, and not just as groups for meeting rooms, as talked about before, but for comedians and music and weddings on the roof. I loved your last slide there of that. And I would like to, for my little snapshot of that I'm sitting up here on this commission, I'd like to support that. I think you've done a really nice job. I like the massing. I like the materials. I think the marquee, as I said earlier, is very well done. And I approve this project. Oh,
Thanks.
Do I say something?
If you'd like.
So, Caitlin, I have a concern that on page 80 of our historic design guidelines that we just approved, we literally call out in photograph 49 an example of a preserved historic theater marquee sign as we're doing good things.
Are you talking about of the Chief Theater's marquee?
Uh-huh.
Well, it currently is preserved, yes. That does not mean that it is necessarily contributing
Okay.
to the building. So please keep in mind those design guidelines are an update and took a really long time to get through, and lots of edits and lots of requested photograph changes by the public. So not every photograph in there, technically staff would have put in there. It was a bit of a negotiation at the end. So I have no concern with that, Molly. And that's a good reminder. Let's replace that photograph, please. Let's find a
Well, it is,
better sign.
if it's talking about marquees and the sign guidelines, then that's the one we have.
Yeah, that is the one we have, but we
Literally
could change
one.
the terminology under it.
It does.
And as we continue to apply our new guidelines, please let's call out things that are errors that we do want to go back in and update and mark those. That's super important. Thank you, Molly.
I'm not entirely sure it is an error. Okay, so I have a few things. First, thank you. It's awesome. I am the most jazzed about the biggest thing that you guys have achieved, which is continuing the historic use of this structure. Like, that's a big deal. And so I think it's bringing a lot of positives to our community. And I'm pleased to see that. And I'm pleased to see that this historic building can be enlivened because it's been resting. I'm not going to repeat what the applicant put in their written report a few times of abandon. It's just been waiting perhaps for this opportunity. So yes, it's great. I think a lot of goals are being met, and I think like brush strokes, I'll call them. A lot of the Secretary of Interior standards and a lot of our design guidelines are being met. I just don't think they're all being met. And my particular consternation is over standard number 9. And we didn't, you didn't go over this in either presentation. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials. We are hoping that that's right. Like, I'm good with that. There's going to be a lot of unknowns, as we said. Materials, features, and spatial relationship that characterize the property. The new work will be differentiated from the old, and I do think that's happening, so thank you, and will be compatible with the historic materials. I'm okay with the materials. I'm okay with the features. The size, the scale, the proportion, and the massing are not protecting the integrity of the property and its environment. And I do not think it's protecting the streetscape of our downtown historic district, and I do not think it's in keeping with that standard. Further, our historic design guidelines say the same thing, which would be Chapter 8, additions. A new addition should not affect the perceived character of the building. The overall design and addition should also be keeping with the design character and the historic structure as well. Keeping the size of the addition small in relation to the main structure will also help minimize its visual impacts. This is incredibly visually impactful. It is not diminishing it. It is diminishing it. The historic structure is not getting enough integrity, I don't think. Furthermore, one of the recommended reading in our packet was historic preservation brief from the National Park. If you're building on top of a roof, rooftop additions, generally rooftop additions should not be more than 1 story in height to minimize its visibility and impact on the proportion and profile of the historic building. A rooftop addition should almost always be set back. Well done, 15 feet, you did it. Of the primary, blah, blah, we don't need to get into that, it talks about that, but you did that, so I'm pleased. While it is difficult, if not impossible, to minimize the impact of adding an entire new floor to a relatively low building, which I would say this is, it should not be more than 1 story. We're looking at 3 stories. So I think that it's not in keeping with the recommendations. Further, I still think wholeheartedly that all of your goals, I still think you can meet the community development plan. I still think that you can meet the downtown guidelines and plans by shrinking it. You can still have all of that by reducing the size of this. 38 feet, good or bad, no one's really gone that high. And so this is going to be hugely impactful to the downtown, and I frankly don't think that our community has the appetite for something that big. We don't have any historic buildings that have any additions on top of them. None. So you being the first one is not a bad thing. It could, put into place a lot of things, but right now, frankly, you are the first one, and you're putting 3 stories on top. That's huge. So I definitely think that a lot of work has gone into diminishing the visual impacts of the addition, but I think it's going to be really evident, and I wish those towers could be moved to the back. It's the first thing I see, and then after some study, I go, oh, I think there's something under there. I don't think in general that we will get that this is our historic theater. I think that some of the views that Caitlin found and pulled up might look like it was taller given the angle, but it's this 38 feet plus the height of additional towers of maybe 10 feet or more is going to completely change our historic downtown. And I'll wrap it up because I'm feeling like I'm getting a little redundant. I think that with an occupancy of 800, I understand that in order to get the venues you want, you need to be able to offer a really large place for those big names, and I commend you for looking to that goal. I also think that we could diminish the size of the building and still draw 650, which I'm sure bands would still come. In fact, in your report, it says between 600 and 800. So let's move towards the 600, maybe 700. I still think that you'll be able to get your economic revenue gains from that. And then finally, I don't think that this meets the CDC either. As in addition to not meeting standard 9 of our Secretary of Interior standards, the CDC is for residential. And this is not residential. This is not even really mixed use, if you ask me. Yes, it has 2 bars in it, but it doesn't have a restaurant. It doesn't have lodging. It doesn't provide office spaces. It's not mixed use and it's not residential. It's a major variance for the sake of adding a rooftop cool venue. It's cool, but I don't think it meets what our codes say. I'm done with my soapbox.
Or can I?
Yeah, we are deliberating.
Okay.
but Staff and the applicant are not.
Okay, so I just want to bring in one thing about your last point. I was on the board at Perry Mansfield, and we do have a problem in this town with venues. We have a major problem with a place, our high school is being used for, it's just for elevations. And I just think one thing that's really lacking deeply in this town is a place where we can gather and watch our children dance or people come in. And I think I just want to address that one point, because I do think, having sat on that board for such a long time and watched the amount of money and the discussions around that particular group of people trying to build things, all different places, to have something downtown. I personally think that there's value in that, and it's not residential and it's not mixed use. I don't think we should pretend like it's mixed use and it's clearly not residential. But I do think in this town right now, to not have, at least in my thought process, that there's so much that we have here that's, but there are holes. There are holes in our town, in my opinion, when it comes to places to do really important things that allow a town to grow. And in the history of our town, Perry Mansfield, all of the arts and the dancing and the music is as old as the Crawford House. That's been here. And I just think, theater and arts are at the core of our history. And so anyway, that's the only point.
Please let me say, if I didn't make that clear, the historic use of this and our need for it, absolutely. I don't think that we need it to we don't need it to be 3 stories. Maybe it doesn't need to hold 800 people. That's more than our middle school and high school. Can it hold 650 and still be the venue, still be the everything, but maybe not impact our downtown to 38 feet?
Yeah, I understand. And I
almost
totally,
50.
I
And it'd be
absolutely
25
value what you're saying. Yes, I value what you're saying.
Meet those core that I also deeply believe in.
Yeah.
If that wasn't clear, sorry.
No, it was totally clear. I just think that in all things, there's compromise and prioritization. And I think, and how I sit on the commission, which I know isn't always the stellar commissioner, but the way I look at things is that in a greater context, if I'm going to sit here and give my time volunteering for this, I have to bring to this that I think as a whole, having a venue, an arts venue downtown that could fit 800, to me, I know that if this was a different town and we were arguing 650 to 800 and we were saying you can drop it down to 650, that's still a lot of people. In my personal experience in this town, that actually, there is a prioritization of that extra 200 people from my
Totally.
limited perspective and experience. So I guess that is just the one point that I think is worth some discussion, is that if what is being proposed is a venue that is just another venue that, you could play at Old Town, you can play at Orem, you can play at, but I think if what we're really proposing here is something that does allow to fill a gap that so many people have been trying to fill, then it's worthy to me of looking at compromise.
And you think that the compromise should be in the code, in the historic preservation, and not in their revenue?
I don't think this is about their revenue. That's how, I deeply don't believe this is about revenue in the way I'm looking at this. And I could
Right,
be
right.
completely wrong.
Right.
But the way I see the world is the only way I can sit here. And
Right.
what I see in our beautiful town that was built on the arts and built on dance and built on music.
Right.
And that when people are in Steamboat and they're like, I don't know what it is about Steamboat. There's something visceral. And I'm always like, we're built on arts. We're built on libraries. Our founders cared about books and dance and music.
Yeah.
And you feel that in this town, and nobody can quite put their finger on it. And I think part of what I really think so many people have been trying to do here. And it's hard because Perry Mansfield does want to do something, but they're up against, they're in the county, there's an HOA, you're driving out there, and are people drinking, and are people driving? And there's so much here that, all of the bullets you can shoot into what they're trying to do out there, and the amount of money, and who's going to put up the money, and the fundraising, it's just, I think, to have an opportunity to have a person here who is, so that's my perspective, is that there's a big hole, and that if somebody makes money on it, that's not at all part of what I'm thinking of, because it's going to cost a lot of money to do this, whether we do it here or out at Perry Mansfield or over by Ace Hardware.
Right, totally. To me, just because this is discussion time, that this designated historic property is as much of a priority to our community as are the arts.
Yes.
To me, the compromise is we're letting them build an addition onto a listed historic property. That's the compromise. We do not need to bend our guidelines and rules and CDC for them to accomplish that. They can still accomplish it. We're letting them build a second story addition. Maybe it doesn't need to be 3, all those things. But the compromise is, yeah, let's change this historic structure that's listed forever. I do not think that this addition would not impact the historic building should it ever be removed. That's permanent. I mean, come on, right? So I think that's the compromise. Yeah, go ahead, build on top, scale it back. Molly, do you want to play? Do you want to play along?
I was just going to say, I mean,
Or you can
That's good.
I'm right there with you guys as far as wanting to get a venue like this in here, and for all of the same reasons. I mean, growing up in Aspen, Belly Up is one of my favorite places to go, and it seats far fewer than 800 people, way fewer than 650 even. And they have some big names that come there. That's Aspen. It's a little different, but thank goodness it's not the same. So I want this desperately. So some things that Caitlin reminds us of frequently is that we are actually obligated to follow the code and not be super loose. And so just like with the last applicant or concept review, I had to say some things that hurt their goals, and it's because that's what the code tells us we have to do, and why we're here and what we're supposed to be protecting. And so I'm concerned about the mass. I'm concerned about from just how it affects that facade of the Chief Theater, but I'm actually equally as concerned about, like, if you go and sit there and sit across the street from the Chief and you look across at all of the buildings on that street, it's going to dwarf the art museum. And that's a big building on that corner, and it dwarfs everything from there to SBNY now, which will look tiny in comparison. So I feel like we're also affecting the entire district by having something this large as well. So I want it so bad. I agree, with all of the reasons to want to make it go through. I'm just really concerned about how it complies with our code and what legally what that does to our commission and rights we have within it.
Katie, can I please make a clarification for the record
Mhm.
in terms with complying with our code? Yes, you're right. We need to comply with the Secretary of the Interior standards and our local historic design guidelines. That does not mean you have to comply with every single standard that's on that piece of paper. Have them pulled up here, and you need to apply the standards for rehabilitation projects in a reasonable manner, taking into consideration a wide variety of factors, including economic and technical feasibility. So I just want to make that clear, particularly in reference to the last project that you guys provided feedback on, because, our standards and guidelines we apply them individually into specific projects, right? Not every single person is going to apply the standards and guidelines the same. So I want to make that very clear. Although you as a commission are going to communicate your recommendation or your non-recommendation as a body, right? Because your individual viewpoints come forward. Same with our guidelines. We don't say it has to meet every single guideline because there's no way a singular project could meet every single guideline. But I do want to touch base on what Katie said, that this doesn't meet the CDC. That's why they're asking for a variance. And so I want to be very clear about that on the record. Yes, currently their building height does not meet what is proposed in the CDC. That is why they're requesting a variance. So I just want to be clear about that. And then please take into consideration that you can craft very specific conditions with your approval if you would like to move forward with recommending approval with specific conditions, or you can not move forward with recommending approval. I just want to go back to what those two options are, since I don't have, page 232 pulled up on my screen.
It's page 2.23.
So those could be reduce the height, push back the word we love to say, appearances. I'm sorry. I had to Google how to say it before this meeting.
And yet we still can't.
And yet I still can't say it. So there are some options I think that the commission could propose. As staff, I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, oh, bring the height down to X number of feet, right? But I think you could say, please bring the height slightly down. Or do everything you can in your possibility to push the appearances back. And it's now almost 8 o'clock, so I'm definitely not going to say it right.
Those towers.
No, we're not. We're not encouraging the use of the word tower, Katie. No. So I just want to be really clear about applying the standards and applying our guidelines and how those are applied. I think about it in terms of when we apply integrity, right? You don't have to meet all 7 aspects of integrity. You need to meet the majority of them. And if you have recommendations for how this project could better meet most standards, I think you can put those in a condition if they're specific enough so the project can continue to move forward, or they'll need to come back fully. But I think it'd be wise if you're going to have them come back to HPC to provide them with some specific guidance. And if you're going to do that, I would consider putting it in a condition.
Okay, cool, thank you. Fellow commissioners, do you think that the motion or that this project requires a condition, or are you ready to vote right now? I mean, we don't need to like break our brains over creating a condition if you if you like how it reads as is.
I know. Well, do we have quorum now still?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was my question.
Yes, we do. We have a 5-member commission.
I know how I'm going to vote on this. I think it's sort of clear. So it would be you guys who would want to, if you feel like.
Can we request to have it tabled to have more opinions?
You can.
Either the commission or the applicant can request a table, right?
Correct.
What do you think about the motion, and would you want to work on crafting a condition? Oopsies.
Just curious if.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, just 1 second, Molly, unless you need more time.
No, you go right ahead. Love this idea.
Yes, I meant to give you time. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Trace Adams, and really appreciate all the time and effort put into this from when we met before and up until now. And we really put a lot of thought into this. The height, it doesn't pertain to, oh, can we be this much and make this much? It's how to integrate every single thing that we're trying to do. And also, if you speak with, downtown Main Street and Lisa Polipovich, a big important part is having the Lincoln be open to the public while you have something else going on. So that is a large part to the size. If you have a wedding going on, you can still have Lincoln be open to the public. If you have a Perry Mansfield theater activity going on, you can still be open to the public in the front. So it's really the size is because it's multidimensional. It's going to be 360 days a year. It's going to incorporate everyone. I can't tell you how many emails I received after the pilot article from so many different areas, and every single one was of support. From I saw a Disney movie there in 1962 and I want to take my granddaughter to a concert, to everyone from Stuart Hanloff, who I was actually the drama program when I was here in high school, and doing Picnic, having an outdoor theater and not having an indoor facility, to Perry Mansfield, to Undiscovered Earth, to everyone that's incorporated in their nonprofit, from theater, music. That side is really where the size has to be. If it's just another music venue, you're the same height as Schmiggety's, you're the same height as Old Town Pub. What else do those incorporate? And that's the biggest aspect that we really try to work on. And I think it is very hard with pictures and how you do it. I've walked by a million times. I walked by a bunch yesterday. I actually met with the whole SAM staff and went through all the plans, and it was very positive. And we went up and looked at that window and showed and measured out the feet and the distance. And when you're on the street, the marquee and the historical facade will be the biggest aspect. Like if you're next to House and Place, and House and Place is roughly like 48 to 50, so is the city council building. And if we're in that same range, it doesn't stick out at all. It's just because we're in a lower tier. SPMY is there, SAM building is there. So I think that's just the one point I want to get across is I know that the height is the struggle that will be with this project, but this is the only way. We've thought and put a lot of time and a lot of money into going through this for a very long time. And it's not about, oh, we want a big capacity for a big concert. I'm very close with the owners of Belly Up, and I know what that is and how that's built, and it works. Aspen's a different beast. People can go and spend $1,000 on a ticket on a Wednesday. People in Steamboat work. And a big part of us is having to, well, not diminishing the Aspen side, but you know what I mean. And
Like I said, thank goodness we're different.
yeah, and the big play is trying to separate it out. There is also a tower of staircase in the back that goes down to the basement, that goes all the way to the roof as well. So like there's 3 emergency exits all throughout the building, which is required, and 1 elevator for ADA. It complies so much to code, and that's where we're kind of handicapped. Is I just had one of our partners is an artist, and we just went and saw a couple of shows at Bluebird and Fox and Aggie and Fort Collins and Denver and Boulder, and in the same space, there's a bathroom, there's 5 stalls that I'm going to have required to do 1 stall. So we have this battle of code, historical, eyesore, height variance in town, all these things come into mix. But our goal in this is to be able to incorporate all aspects and to be able to have a wedding going on while there's people in the main bar, to have a concert will be the whole venue, to have play, to have theater, to have music, to have every single thing involved. And that's where to have seats, that's not an 800 person capacity, to have real seats in there for theater and going throughout, that's like 300 capacity. And so that's just really all I want to add is in your consideration. And thank you very much for this throughout the whole process. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, anyway.
I think we should have more voters.
How do we go about tabling it? Or did you,
Is that a motion?
oh, okay.
You need to request.
No, HPC can request to table it for having more HPC members present. I wouldn't specify the full board though, just because you never know.
No,
People get sick. And you will need someone to make a motion, and that motion will need to be second.
I make a motion to table the project PL 20250340, the development plan for a major variance and conditional use application for an alternation to historic resource, requiring a multi-level rooftop addition and change of use to an indoor event venue for the Chief Theater at 813 Lincoln Avenue.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor of tabling?
Tabling, yeah.
Aye.
Okay, we'll come back to this after all of that. Thank you for your attention.
I have a question for the commissioners. Would you be open to coming back to it sooner than in 4 weeks?
Yes.
If I can get Marianne and Julie on board, would you be open to coming back to us like as soon as I can get everyone on board? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Are meeting minutes on the agenda?
Yeah,
I don't think they are, actually.
they were.
They are. Okay.
I just trying to flip to that page. Hold on. We're gonna move on to our meeting minutes, but I can't find the date. Oh, wait, maybe I'm almost there. I got it.
October
Thanks.
13th.
Meeting minutes for October 13th. Thanks, everyone. Does anyone have any additions, changes, edits?
No.
Me either.
Me neither.
Would you like to make a motion to approve the October 13th meeting minutes?
I hereby make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 13th, 2025.
Second.
As a second, the meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. And then also it's 8:10 PM and we can make a motion to close the shop.
I make a motion to adjourn the.
Could you wait, please?
Yes?
So
Did we forget something?
possibly I may need you to state your motion again really quickly. Can you both wait, please, also? We will have to renotice the HPC hearing, which will take 2 weeks unless you choose a specific date.
Oh, no.
Don't we need to know when Julie and Marianne can be here?
I mean, yes, but
Is 2 weeks detrimental?
is 2 weeks detrimental?
Well,
I know time.
is that November 24th?
Well, why don't we,
As potentially. What about
Wait, how about
Monday
this?
First.
how about we choose a date and then I confirm the date tomorrow?
Okay.
And then if we change the date, we still have to renotice it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you just want to do next week?
So let's go with next. How long does a yoga retreat take?
Never
None of us have been on one.
retreat.
I haven't
How about
been on
the
one either.
Wednesday,
That's why I
Wednesday the
don't know.
19th seems like plausible.
I
Didn't say.
don't know.
possibly Do you know when they get back? Okay, thank you. What a great community this is. Yeah. So when are they back? Okay.
So maybe the 19th?
The 19th, should we say?
So sorry, can I say not the 19th?
Yeah,
How
that's
about
fine.
the 18th?
The 20th.
Okay,
Oh, look, Mike has.
So Mike has
conflicts
something
too.
too.
okay, thanks, Mike. How about Monday, the 17th?
Okay.
I think we should give them, I actually can't do the 17th, and then we should give her a minute to read it.
What? Oh, yeah, well, she said the packet.
Should we do the 18th, Tuesday, the 18th?
18th. Mike, can we have the 18th?
We can't do the 18th. There's city council on the 18th.
Thank you.
We'll be in a different room?
No, because I have to be at city council.
Okay. Earlier in the day on the 17th?
Okay, Rebecca says renotice.
Renotice, so the 20th, so 2 weeks?
Well,
Or,
She said just pick something and then post a renotice. Is that what she means?
yes. Is 2 weeks going to be too late? I think that's better than waiting for a whole month.
Exactly.
December 2nd.
Or first.
Okay, so
So why are we not doing the 17th?
because
That does not work for her.
I
Doesn't
can
work.
Make it work.
You can make it.
I can make it work,
Oh.
but is Rebecca saying?
You have to work. Okay, wait, it's.
okay, what we're going to do is renotice the meeting.
Okay.
We will pick a date. Please be available to communicate with me tomorrow. Text message.
Do we need to say our motion again?
No.
Okay.
And
Thank
do-
you.
Staff update is not on the meeting agenda?
I have no staff update.
There we go. Problem solved.
Okay. I'm just going to call to adjourn the meeting one more time.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second it.
Meeting is closed.
Thank you, guys.
Right, I think that was a good decision, especially because I know Marianne's pretty close to this project. She's on our Main Street board.
Yeah.